meeting was approving the minutes from July 23rd, 2018. Anybody got any omissions or corrections?
Yes. All right, just some edits. One question I had was 63 Great Road at Cloverdale. The third to last sentence or so, it says, she referred to her June 15th letter in which she pointed out the mowing as well as the presence of a
Shed.
It's shed, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
A she shed. I don't think that's a she shed. Because I know what he said.
And then also the Land Stewardship Committee, part of the first sentence, the very end, it says, decisions without Conservation Commission direction, that members could be appointed with no formal process or need to meet open law. That's open meeting law, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Page 2, Hartwell Avenue Conservation Restriction Update for 51 and 53 Hartwell. The last sentence, I changed from flat marker to flush to the ground, marker flush to the ground, and then added easily lost or obscured.
I thought we discussed that we weren't going to accept that. We wanted it on a post.
Yeah, exactly.
It
Yeah.
says the commission agreed that the shed had to be removed, but did not agree that a flat marker or a flush to the ground marker of the CR boundary would be acceptable, as it would be easily lost or obscured.
Okay.
And continued public hearing notice of intent 44 Booth Street, and I'm sorry if I'm ignorant of this, but Jude Galvin, is that a man?
Yes, he is.
Jude, okay. I wasn't sure if it sounded like a woman's name, so. Right. And the continued public hearing notice of intent 10 Fort Pond. It said Ms. Green reviewed her report that showed 2 months of standing water that included the driveway area. I added in 2 months of standing water beginning in March, March of something. I wasn't sure when in March it was that you began, but I knew it was March, right?
Yeah.
And you might want to actually say the entire spread, March, specific date through May, specific date, that include the driveway area. And I thought that, as Mr. Hall stated, that they had done a project before where the vernal pool has been filled for a single-family house. I thought it was just a portion of it, so a project before where a portion of a vernal pool had been filled in for a single-family house. Just a couple of things. It says, and at the end of that one, it says the only available information is what Ms. Green had collected. I added, comma, which indicated the vernal pool may extend under the proposed driveway. And then, instead of, and the continued discussion bylaw regulatory review, it states there was general consensus that allowing some wriggle room might be appropriate. Instead, I crossed out wriggle room and I'm adding, there was general consensus that allowing some additional accommodations for single-family homes might be appropriate. Thought that's specifically what we talked about, right?
Yeah, but you're going to have other projects coming along besides homes. I mean, there'll be other things.
Yeah, but the stormwater section specifically talks about single-family homes and different categories of them, of that versus
Right, if you had one
commercial.
versus like 3 to,
Right.
what was it, 3 to 7
Yeah, 4
or
or
I
3.
think 3 were exempt. 3 were,
Well, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, we're just doing minutes here.
okay.
I think I have your dates, March 29th to May 30th for the vernal pool
Okay, thank you.
evaluations, the span.
Okay. You
And
got
the
it?
last thing is, a public meeting request for determination of applicability, 49 Manawanaki Trail. The second to last sentence says, commission concurred that if it falls on, the tree falls on its own, it could do damage to the bank, and period, and then it says as such, agreed. So I changed it to, if it falls on its own, it could do damage to the bank and the resource area, and therefore agreed it can be cut down with stump to remain. And I put it in red lines so you can. Method?
Anybody else got any comments? If not, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. 63 Great Road at Cloverdale. Somebody want to speak to that?
The only thing I have to add, I think everybody's seen it. You're kind of familiar
Oh yeah, very familiar with the site.
with the idea. So I talked to Green International, and they are not doing any boundary survey, so if we wanted something, it would be like $4,600 to add it in. But what they'll do is they will include, extend the existing conditions a little bit further and pull in what they can of it. And if there are any bounds out there, pre-existing ones that show up on some of the plot plans, they can establish those. And then otherwise, it's just your discussion of what to do.
So the existing conditions is only for the Cloverdale parcel, excuse me, and not like the 5A, 6A parcels?
It would be for 6A and 7A, because that's where the work,
Okay, but not 5A, which
yeah,
is.
but they might extend a little bit further.
Okay.
Because it can be
Let's
widened view.
Okay. Do we know exactly how much?
No.
Okay.
I went out, Rachel was there, that was when it was really stormy, after the storm. Anyway, my feeling is that, it probably would be appropriate maybe within the 25-foot easement to continue mowing, but then, maybe establish what that line is and allow, everything beyond the 25-foot line to grow up. That's my
Well,
feeling.
I do mow a lot of conservation land and have acres. And when you do not keep it mowed, you start getting the brush. And if I happen to be late, I'll start getting a bunch of brush coming up in it.
But it is conservation area, so.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that that's what happens. And if you got that invasive species stuff, you're gonna have it creeping in. I see it, and I deal with it. And I'm just saying that if you got somebody that's doing something that isn't costing the town any money, let them continue unless it's, but not do any more than what they're doing. That's my opinion.
Well, I would at least want it to grow up, to be like meadow, like at least have flowers and, other, pollinating insect, helping plants instead of lawn. That's my opinion on conservation area. We shouldn't have lawn area, which does not help bring any, very much wildlife.
I went down, I saw it too, and for the life of me, I do not know why that wooded area wasn't in the 25-foot buffer. Should have been flipped the other way. It doesn't make sense the way it is.
But
I'm just
it's
saying,
now, yeah, it is what it is now, so.
I know, but that doesn't make sense. But for whatever reason, it got left that way
Got flipped.
for the last 40 years. So,
Yeah.
I definitely have concerns about the bittersweet that's creeping in, like on the wood line. And so if you stop, I mean, I would like that to be controlled actually.
Mhm.
because as we know, it's just a voracious spreader, so I have concerns that like it's just naturally gonna be creeping out into, you know, other areas. So I feel like controlling the invasive species for me is really important there.
But I would say that.
I do
there are
agree a
so
pollinator
many
is valuable.
Areas where that may be the case on the
Yeah.
conservation areas. And-
But this is fairly controlled. It really is. Like there are like small patches that are just starting, and so I feel like if we just say okay, like we're just gonna stop maintaining. I mean, maybe the maintenance needs to be at lesser intervals, so it's less like a lawn. But I have really big concerns about the bittersweet that's just starting, because it's just going to get worse, and if we stop maintaining it, I feel like it's just going to get worse.
It's,
Do you think maybe just reducing the mowing to once or twice a year, which is what the other meadow, the rest of Cloverdale is?
Yeah.
You do that kind of, where the intent is once or twice a year.
I mean,
The rest of the meadow in Cloverdale
well, this is the first year it won't have
that
been
you
mowed
had, yeah,
only once.
right.
I mean, since it is part of Cloverdale technically, could the same person who mows the other part mow that part outside of the 25?
Which is Jim.
I think that person probably could.
So
You have to
a very large
ask them
mower.
and.
I have a brush.
A brush mower, okay.
Rachel, how do you, it has to be in lesser intervals. I'm not gonna put my lawnmower out there for twice a year and risk it, so.
Right.
it's gotta be a commercial machine that does it mowing.
Right.
What's the rest of the board? How do you feel about?
I definitely think that the mowing should continue, but maybe in fewer intervals, just to kind of keep it a little more natural. But yeah, we definitely don't want to let it go, because the glossy buckthorn and everything else is gonna shoot back up like crazy if we don't keep it under control.
Yeah, buckthorn is all over the rest of the meadows too, especially kind of this further one.
How often are you mowing it?
I've been mowing it every 2 weeks or less,
So-
depending on how long it gets.
I guess you have to figure out what is the goal of the conservation land and what is the goal of the mowing, and that's how I base my decision.
So how do you feel?
I don't know what the goal is.
The goal is
What
conservation
is-
land, because that is.
No, yeah, but beyond
part of
that,
Cloverdale.
there was a reason it was cut.
To control the
Well,
invasive.
What was the goal? What was the whole reason that was cut initially? And we go back to that statement and say, well, that's how we want to maintain it. I don't know what the goal was.
What crossed my mind after looking at it in the
That we
pine,
know.
in the pine grove and everything there, and plus this bridge that's gonna be put in, I was thinking the pine grove and even that could be an ideal picnic area at some point.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, that's,
It'll be right next to the parking lot too.
yeah. I mean, that's something,
Perhaps.
but you would wanna keep it under control, just so you keep the ticks and the mosquitoes down and everything else. If it
I mean,
happened.
are you trying to allow any grass on nesting birds to go in there, or are you just keeping it mowed to keep it open and?
I would think that keeping it, my mind would be to keep it open. Hey, but that's just my.
It's kind of small for ground nesting. Are there any?
Well, it is, I
nesting
mean,
birds?
Yeah, it's kind of a
Over
I mean,
there,
they need,
strip.
they need a lot of acreage,
Yeah,
but,
We didn't get any until we cleared the pasture and then we got the, what do they
well,
call it?
maybe you need, I mean, maybe put some,
Yeah, the building.
Yeah.
maybe it would be a good area to put some pollinating plants in there. And there's always a good reason that you can do something, rather than, I don't mind the mowing, every 2 weeks might be a little excessive.
Well, that's what we were saying, just make it either, twice a year, just like the rest of
Quarterly.
Cloverdale. It'll allow the grasses to grow up, it'll allow maybe nesting birds, they do, because they need somewhat of a high grass to do that.
You probably won't get them in there, like
Yeah.
Amy said, they need like 10 acres to,
and that's not a place killdeer's gonna, not.
No,
No,
well,
they
That, we've
want,
got too much.
they want nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So maybe it would just be for pollinators, and if not pollinators, then a picnic area. I mean, yeah, I guess I agree with Carl in that there has to be some sort of purpose to it. since it is part of the conservation area,
I mean,
we've gotta decide.
You
what
have
we
to be
want.
able to, right, I mean, we had the cutting take place, so there had to be a reason beyond
it's
just the
true.
Yeah, is there-
invasives.
So there's
So-
no more paperwork that's turned up, Amy, on that?
I just see it, yeah.
Okay. I guess my other thought is we have, right now, it's actively holding the materials
That's,
for the project. And I also, I feel like either you let it grow up or you cut it, like cutting it twice a year, I think is different equipment, I'm assuming, and so I'm just I can definitely see that grass
Yeah.
is not necessarily, but it also, I don't, without this agreement, I'm having a really hard time.
So you have open water, right?
Not on that side,
There's no open water?
not on that side.
Further out.
No,
Further
it's
out,
like in
on the other
But it's
side
all
of
part
the,
of the conservation land.
It is,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a grass buffer on the other side of.
Right, so you have, I mean, looking at the whole,
The
you should look at
woods.
the place as a whole, right? Holistically, it's all conservation
Yeah,
land.
it's like.
This is just where the
Cloverdale,
mode part is one management unit of
Then there's woods,
the whole,
and then there's their grass. So they're
right,
separated by the woods between the main part
right.
of
So
Cloverdale.
I think, just being the Conservation Commission, we just need to have an idea of why we're doing something and what the purpose is.
I think that's the problem, we don't have the background
Well, I mean,
documentation, other than it was a
there is plan
25
for
foot
the
cut
easement, and
zone,
it
right.
just defines the easement and as a no-cut easement.
Right.
My understanding is the intent of it was to, if trees actually grew there, it wouldn't be cut, the burden would be on the town, that it
Yeah.
couldn't be cut to protect the abutters
Right.
visually. So that, I don't think, there may have been a discussion about, sure, go ahead and plant a garden there, but I don't think any of that was written down in the
Memorialized.
easement, so it was just sort of neighbor to neighbor at that point.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's not only the 25 foot, it's beyond the 25 foot into the conservation.
Right.
area.
that's-
That's
Well,
the
the
issue
25
too,
foot
that-
is conservation area.
It is, but there are different restrictions on that part than the rest, which is actually part of Cloverdale, it should be part of the overall plan of the entire parcel. And it's, but now it's lawn, so we have to decide, do we wanna stop at the 25 foot, just have the 25 foot piece mowed consistent, like part of, and I know it's a no-cut area, it really doesn't make sense. It's not even maintained as the agreement states as it is, so it's kind of difficult to decide what to do, but
Yeah,
I
and
think, I don't know.
I wonder if there's, if we can step back and take a more whole, I guess, at the moment, I've been looking at it as the strip, and what do we do with the strip between, the property and the wood line,
Right.
and, based on what Carl said, and not knowing the intent and having the land transfer, and now it was recreation, and
yeah,
now
it
it's
was supposed to
us.
have been, yeah.
Maybe taking a step back. I don't know if, Natural Heritage might have an opinion, or Matt, if you have any thoughts,
It's
or.
not natural heritage.
No, I know it isn't, but
Oh, in terms
as,
of, yeah.
in
yeah.
terms of appropriate, what do you stick, you know what I mean? What do you stick there? Just
Can I-
letting the grass go seems weird.
All I can tell you is I've
How do we
seen,
make it valuable?
I have seen some of the biggest rats and rodents in hayfields this year that I've ever seen. And if you get that thatch isn't kept mowed, I'm afraid they're gonna get invaded in the neighborhood.
Well, I mean,
I-
the
that's-
mowed place,
But right to the tree line.
Yeah, ticks are
That's
for
what
sure.
I'm
Well,
afraid
on the
of, where you've got
rodents.
houses around there.
well, the 25 foot was supposed to be the buffer, no cut, but, I mean, we could flip it in our mind and have so outside of the 25 foot is the buffer between the houses and Cloverdale.
Yeah.
And so we could keep the 25 foot open, but then, again, decide what to do outside of the 25 foot.
How much is left after the 25 foot in that
It's
field?
only, we
10
look at the
feet
I
out.
thought it was
boundaries.
another
It's
25
about
on
another,
top of it.
yeah, it's about another 25,
Yeah.
yeah. So, we could make it kind of birds like the transition between meadow and woods, we could put some
Shrubs or
plant
something.
shrubs, a
Like
brush line there.
serviceberry or
Yeah, low,
some,
low dog.
I honestly would prefer that to tall grasses,
Yeah.
just from a
Don't
habitat.
try viburnums there, cause they're not doing well in our yard.
No. Yeah, it's probably shady, like, I think serviceberry does
I
decent.
think bottom
I don't know, I mean,
line, with all of this, it needs to be staked as conservation land. The property is not staked
yeah,
at this
That's
present
true.
time, and I think it should be with the markers.
yeah,
And they gonna keep it mowed anyway, while they're doing their construction project on the
Right.
bridge anyway. So that gives us a little more time to digest this and think about it. If that's agreeable with the rest of the board, why they're
Well, it would just be, it would pretty much just be sort of the front part, because it's kind of L-shaped. It's just the
Mhm.
front part that needs to get moved for materials purposes.
whatever needs. That's agreeable with the board for the time being, and have a chance to give it a little more thought as to what.
And maybe a preliminary idea would be to keep it a transitional area from meadow to woods. And maybe come up with a planting plan, or at least think about a
Well, the
plan.
planning
Yeah.
plan would be something you would need to pay for.
mhm. Yeah, well, it's conservation land.
Yeah.
It was-
Is there any input from the audience or anything?
Maureen Adam, I'm number 5 Old Farm Road. Last, 2 weeks ago, when I was here, and then I did do a site walk myself, it was brought up that, I could actually present some photographs, we'll put into the chair, of, that it was once upon a time wooded, and maybe that's why the plan makes more sense. So this here would have been 2004, the spring after we moved in 2003. And this is where we were actually cutting back the trees right behind our house. If you were to come up my driveway, this would be right about here. This would be the next fall, and this here is like all the wood chips from the trees that we had, kind of
Clear cut.
mounted. So I just wanted to demonstrate that you're looking straight through to Blackwoods, and if you were to take this photograph today, of course, the fence has now been erected in the meantime, you would see straight through to 63 Great Road, right across to 119, and then to the horse farm. Just wanted to also demonstrate, because I didn't want this to appear that this was when we then did make our swimming pool over on this side. These are obviously those trees here. That didn't actually happen until 2013. Clearly these are my children. They are 5 and 3
They're
at the
cute.
time. They're 17 and 19 today. The walk gave me a great concern. I was very surprised at actually how much it actually come up to my property line. I was really surprised because we do have the fence, and anywhere amongst the fence, it's either 3 feet to 5 feet out, and I was really surprised how much had been cut and mowed up into the conservation land, almost coming up to our fence. My husband and I yesterday did try to go out and relocate our stake. Stake was there once upon a time. We've been there for 15 years. We were not able to find the stake yesterday. That's a bit concerning. I don't know why that would be. Also, in the meantime, and maybe this isn't the night to address it, and maybe actually, I don't want to take everybody's time up, but
It's yard right there.
I do have some big concerns about, the fact that the letter that my husband and I wrote has not been presented to the commission. Someone did ask us tonight, has there been any more paperwork? I think there was a letter that had gone in to the coordinator. She took that. I believe the O'Neills were contacted. There was a site walk on the 11th. There had been 3 meetings in between then and 2 weeks ago before it feels like the conservation had been made aware of this. I'm not sure why there isn't other paperwork that hasn't been able to be given to the commission. I myself, working 40 hours a week, and even actually having a funeral last Friday, was able to come up with quite a bit of documentation that very clearly states what I was stating 2 weeks ago and what my concerns were being true. There is no documentation that there was ever an agreement when the land was privately owned. Land did become town-owned land in 1999. Then there was what they call a land exchange, and I do have most of the documents that I checked in with the assessors. And I do have a copy of the deed, what was registered, the actual switch. Problem with the assessors' copies is it was double-sided, and there does appear to be 2 pieces of paper missing. The letter, this first page that would be addressed to Keith Bergman from Town Council, with the recommendations on how this should take place. And the second page on the actual quick deed. So I can get that, to everybody. I did put a request in on Friday to see if I could obtain those 2 pages. I have not yet heard back from the admin. I did that in writing. But sounds like you have a plan and you guys are gonna address it and you know that it's your property now. The other part that I am still very adamantly pursuing is that 5A, that particular lot parcel, was very, very, in my opinion, deliberately left from anything that stated Cloverdale. It's not on the CPC application, it's not on any agenda, it's not on any minutes. It starts 6, 7A, and then there's 11, sometimes it's referred to as Lot A, 11A, or 16, and then the big parcel that was always conservation.
Well,
Here.
that would have been recreation at that
No,
point.
the big parcel, actually, checked with the assessors, that wasn't part of the exchange. That was always classified as conservation when Apple Dior was being built.
The
big
rear,
one. The big one, yeah.
the wet one, basically, the
Right.
front of it
So,
was.
I mean, I can give you a
Yeah,
copy
front
of
was
what I have
recreation.
of the parcels and everything. I'd be more than happy to share that.
I mean, do you have insight with your position on the Board of Assessors? Do you have
I actually,
insight?
you know what,
on
I actually don't. I'm a math person, so,
Map?
math.
Oh,
meaning
math,
that I'm
okay.
gonna call out square footage and
Okay.
I'm gonna say that this is good, fair, whatever. I
Got it.
really actually don't, other than, I do know that, parcels can be changed, can change of use and such not. But here is probably the stuff that we're talking about with the exchange.
Mm.
And again, it was always called Apple Dior Farms. That Cloverdale thing label did not actually come up until 2014. This is the one where, so we're missing page 2 of this.
Mhm.
Assessors only had this, and then we had page 1 of that's missing. But, all of this is what I was able to get from the assessors. But like I said, I don't wanna take more of your time. I think you guys have a plan for it, and I think it's gonna be addressed, and I don't think it's gonna be used as personal property again. And it was used as personal property. I know I was very rudely erupted 2 weeks ago when I was speaking, but there is actually a great tool, I'm sure many of you probably have used. It's Google Earth, and they actually can do a whole time lapse. So I actually had a friend demonstrate to me how you can show that. And you go over the Google map from 95 to today, you can actually see there are actual things, and I'm not gonna say that they were built structures, but there are actually things of personal property that were being used over that particular time. And I said, there was no agreement. I think it was very deliberately made to look like it was owned. Me connecting the dots, 5A being left on all these other documents, I think is very, very, very suspicious. But from a homeowner and a property owner, I do want my property to be protected, and I don't want the cutting to come up towards my fence anymore. And whether there needs to be some sort of shielding or something after this whole boardwalk is done, that definitely needs to be addressed. And, I'm kind of sad, 2 weeks ago I came back in to listen to a woman talk. I can't understand why, she's gonna spend $500 for a swing set to be removed. And then there's no ramifications at all for using property that wasn't theirs for years and years and years. I mean, for goodness sakes, folks, Can we not just wait?
There's an
There's-
individual in town I'd like to talk to, that family that owned, they're heirs from the family that owned Cloverdale.
Yeah, and
They would have sold the property to DeCarlo.
Yep, so that's all on
Well,
that
and
land.
it's really, it's just the legal easement
Yeah,
that matters
Yeah,
at this point.
Yeah.
And 5A is, I double check what it's called in there, is part of the Cloverdale. It hasn't been part of some of the other filings because it wasn't involved in the other filings.
it's not, I think it was very deliberately, connecting the dots, it was very, very, very deliberately left off from the very first time that it came up on CPC, application, agenda, and it starts at 6. The 5 seems like the individuals that were presenting and at those meetings, 5 was never there. To me, you know what, I don't even think I'm a highly suspicious individual. I mean, you saw the letter I wrote, Amy. The letter I wrote, Amy, you wrote it up and reported as it is a complaint. It was not. It was nothing more than questions. And I really would, for a second time, like to have your board members, the commission, actually see the letter that we wrote. I think withholding that from them doesn't really give them all the information that they need. I mean, I just don't think that's justifiable, you know? I mean, I'm not gonna write an individual letter to each one of them, but to not give them that letter and then just make your own report up, I think is very biased. It shows, to my opinion, special interest, special favoritism. It doesn't bode light.
Is that what you're accusing me of?
I'm not, I said, what to
That-
me,
That sounds,
I'm not being accusatory
Need
at
some
all.
order here,
All I'm
Jim.
stating is,
Hey,
I
we
asked for the letter
gotta,
to
we gotta
go.
move on,
Yes, thank you very much.
okay?
I need a point of clarification, though.
Sure.
If they had a structure on our land, it absolutely would need to be removed.
Yeah.
They're removing a shed that is within a setback that they could very easily go to ZBA.
Actually, they
Um,
can't go to ZBA because you can't make your own hardship. So because they put that structure,
Okay.
because they put that structure
Okay,
up
well,
on
the-
their own.
Okay, so I don't know full ZBA. I assumed they could at least go and request.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who don't meet setbacks and have grandfathering. At any rate, had they had a structure on the property, they absolutely would have been asked to remove it immediately,
Absolutely, right.
consistent with what is occurring, which is very unfortunately occurring on Hartwell.
But Julie, here's my one question. You have to ask yourself, how many times has Amy Green been out to that site in the last 18 months? This board that yourselves have been out there twice that are right in the minutes. And I just feel that it wasn't caught. But what concerns me is that there are other people in town. You know, first I thought the contractors were being kind of, you know, pushed around a little bit in here, but then it seems like there are other residents that have them, and it really makes me sad that, you know, we just can't be reasonable and make, you know, just common sense and, like I said, I just can't understand 500, like, why we couldn't let a swing set sit until the children are done. They have a lifetime. and
That's
they can
actually
go.
technically not our jurisdiction. It's natural heritage,
Yeah,
and
those are
it's
different
very,
things.
Yeah,
it's
but
a
I'm just
very,
saying,
very different,
I
no.
still think,
It's a very, very different case. It is a completely, like,
Yeah.
you understand assessor, you understand deeds. Natural heritage and conservation
And I
have
don't.
two very, very
Right.
different jurisdictions.
And
So
that's
there
why
is
my
nothing at
point
all.
was-
It would
We
be-
even advise the homeowners to see what they could do with natural heritage, to see if natural heritage
But it
would
just-
allow
it
them.
just sounds awful.
It does sound awful. I agree. It sounds awful. However, the jurisdiction's very different. These are apples and oranges, and I take offense to your accusations about
I
Amy
didn't
and
make
this
any
board.
accusations. I
It
did-
came across that way.
Okay, I did not make any accusations. I just said the appearance of, and I have to say, if I have all of this information here from all of that, I don't understand why it wasn't presented. And again, you know, Amy's been out there quite a bit. I think she had to realize that this was being mowed long before, now it's being mowed for the staging. I don't have anything, you know, to lose here, but I do think sometimes people come in front of here and there's a fearfulness that there are things that are required, and it just doesn't see, it's really, I know all 7, and Sarah's here, great people, volunteers, all of that, but I do think that there is still a special interest that is taking maybe some extra considerations in regard to
It
these
would be,
individuals.
excuse me, it would be very helpful. You said you couldn't find your bound?
Yeah, we
We
looked
would-
yesterday, and couldn't find
We
it.
would be very helpful if you could,
Yeah.
because we're gonna have to stake it and put a conservation signs along that boundary line, so if you can locate it,
Yeah.
that would be very helpful.
We found the corner one, but we didn't find the one that's up on,
Well,
conservation.
That would be helpful.
Okay. Anything else that would be helpful? Because,
Well, I mean, I hear you that, we should get that information, so, you know, without all the judgment on it, you can request that we get that information, and maybe Amy can send it along to us.
We've seen prior reports. I think it might just be this most recent letter.
Jim, you got something you wanna say?
Yeah, I'd like to be able to defend it myself, if I have the time. I know we have other things to do, but
And we also have our
Yeah.
photographic
we also
evidence.
have our photographic
It's-
evidence, but I'd like to see that photographic evidence, please.
Although it seems like two different things are going on there. That, isn't that the line behind your house, which is different than the line that we were looking at, which is more toward Cloverdale?
so
Absolutely.
there's both of
Well,
those, so,
it goes an L, as Amy
Right.
said.
no,
So
that's
the
the
line
L
that
right
you're saying
behind,
is the
where
L.
the children are sitting
Yeah,
right
there are
there,
trees
right
between
behind
their
there.
property and
Right.
our property.
Right,
They're
that's what
still
she was,
there.
that's what those pictures are, that's what those pictures are.
No, from here.
These pictures
this way.
don't prove anything. They're just woods there, which is still there.
I guess she's saying that there aren't as much woods anymore.
Well,
We stopped by your
haven't
house?
taken down any trees.
Were they
Let's stop by your
thinned?
house.
Was it,
We
was
have
it
not done
thin?
that, and we have also
Was it
not
thin?
mowed up to
Hmm?
Mrs. Adams'
Did you,
fence.
you thin the understory?
But I would need
I don't know.
before and after, you know, those are.
Well,
They're
we
cleaned.
have some
Yeah.
pictures.
The
of
understory
like-
underneath that
I'll have to try to.
strip
do a
that's
proper
wooded,
fence
yeah.
and do something. Well, you can
That
come
has
up
been,
to-
but that had a lot of invasive species and
Yeah.
stuff in it.
We would be happy to provide you with the evidence. Mrs. Adama has contended that her aerial maps from before show that there were clearly trees there. Okay, this is 1977, when we moved there. This is the trees that over on Surrey. There was no trees there.
The trees that are behind, between our house and Adams' house were
Weren't
not
there.
there in 1977.
Right.
This
Nor
way,
were
no,
there any
too.
trees on the no-cut zone and the field beyond it, all the way to where Cloverdale has been cleared, all the way down to the Acton line, there were no trees.
Right. Now, this is taken of the field on the other side of our goat fence that is still existing. There's no trees there. This shows you from the back of our property towards the road, through the shed that's still there, on the property line, not on our property.
This is where we stood on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
looking
Yeah, I know, I
towards
know the
Great
shed.
Road.
Looking towards Great Road. No
There's
trees.
no trees there. We've never taken down trees there.
These were-
The only
This is behind,
vegetation that we've removed from that property was euonymus bushes, which are highly invasive.
that we
which
installed
We
ourselves.
planted years ago, and were informed by the Littleton Conservation Trust that they were highly invasive,
Yeah,
so
they're
we
bad.
removed them.
Okay, I hate to show you this picture
Autumn
because I
olive.
had an afro. That's the field that we're talking about. 1979. 1981, that's the field, looking towards Great Road. 1981, from Great Road, looking towards that field.
This is a good
And
one.
again,
This one here shows two, I believe, excuse me. The pine trees in the background are the pine trees that are at the end of that current field now, which are about 50, 60 feet tall. In what was that?
81.
81, they were about 6 feet tall. So none of that is new, is old growth forest, it's all new growth. Everything that was removed during the restoration was all new growth. The forester told me none of it's over 40 years old. So, I would just like the board to have it on record that we've been accused of things that we haven't done.
Repeatedly,
And we take
over 4
exception
years.
to the continued harassment.
That's nothing.
Well, as Adama said, maybe we need a sidewalk on her property as well to see what she might be talking about, and maybe compare what it looks like now to this.
Those fir
Where's this?
trees, I remember seeing them in the front yard when I
Do you wanna
drive
see
by.
these?
I remember seeing them there. I don't remember,
Those were lost in the Gypsy Moth invasion in 1976, 7, 8,
Like,
or
The
early
ones on
80s, I
either
guess.
side of our house, you mean?
There was
There's
two in the
some
front,
fir.
and then there were two at each end of our house.
I remember
And
them
the Gypsy Moths
seeing
got them
them.
all.
Mhm.
like this photo really shows it, like
The ones
back
we
of the
planted
shed.
in front of our
Yeah.
house.
It really shows that it's clear back
Yeah.
then.
The ones that are planted in front of our house came from that property. And they're now as tall as the ones in Cloverdale. And we planted them there.
Kinda shows that it must have, well, when somebody bulldozed up the loam and stuff, it must have been pretty clear at that point in time.
Up to the field.
And when was the?
We're talking about the
easement
space
put
to the
there?
left of the shed.
That whole-
When they got to the phase 4 of Apple
Around
Dior.
1998, I believe, when phase 4 was approved.
Right.
It was about 10 years after the last, okay.
It was still expected to be, or projected to be playing fields at the time, which is why they put the easement on for us. In case we wanted to plant trees. They named it a no-cut easement so the town couldn't take them down later. That's why they called it a no-cut easement. We didn't choose to plant trees there. Well, a few trees, but, they're still there.
Yeah, the picture next to your shed shows pretty clearly the area that we were standing in.
But I vaguely, I guess I probably do remember it being open, going by in my younger years, when I was going to Concord.
You're still young, Jim.
Yeah.
Is that when you had an afro too?
Oh,
You could see all the way
Photoshop
to,
that part, right?
More like a flat top.
when we moved there, you could see the hill where the new driveway of Apple Dior goes in from our house.
So right now, this is in short term, to keep mowing the sort of front piece of that, because it's a staging area right now. But maybe reduce the mowing a bit on the back piece, and get the posts, the assigned and posted around there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That would be appropriate.
that's actually
Before we have any more dispute over the boundary lines. We need to move on to the land steward committee.
Actually, maybe we should go to the 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Actually, what I would rather do is get these poor property owners from Durkee
Oh,
in and
geez.
out.
Okay,
Because I thought they'd be in and out.
all right, let's do that.
Are you gonna move land stewardship to another meeting?
The only thing on the land stewardship was, there wasn't actually a vote before to establish the land stewardship committee with Jim as director of land stewardship.
Oh, I thought we did.
It was discussed, and I actually went back and double checked, it wasn't actually voted,
Okay.
and I think I probably should take a vote
So we should have a motion to make him the land steward
to
chief.
establish the land stewardship committee.
So
Nick?
moved.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
You sure you know for a second?
I'd really like for you to come out and see it, because it's
Yeah.
hard to make an opinion
Yeah.
Yeah.
without seeing it.
There's a motion
Yeah.
on the floor to establish the
that's only
land
fair.
steward committee and have Jim in charge of it.
You made a motion.
Yep.
Second. May.
Motion, I second.
I'm just saying, when it was seconded, and we have a vote on it. All those in favor?
Aye. Did we want a representative on that committee? I'm just saying.
You looking for another position?
I'll take it.
I think you should calm down. Do you have time, Andrew?
It's important. You make time.
I just want to make one point with it. We sure it's going to be all right with everyone in town that I'm the land stewardship?
No, with our neighbors, yeah.
Conflict of interest?
Well, thank you very much for hearing this.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And I was gonna just take the bill and stuff of what you guys did up there.
Oh, the graffiti,
But that's
yeah,
gonna,
we got that.
wait, yes.
Dustin's gonna take care of the other one, probably.
Do you want our prints of our proof?
If those are extras, I would love them.
Pardon me?
I would
Yes.
love them for the file, thank you.
Okay. Next time I need them, I'm gonna get them from you though.
I'll copy them back to you.
If you need the originals to see what the
I'm
date
sorry, is
is.
that you?
Yeah.
That's the only reason I wanted them. Okay, I'll make copies and get them back to you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Good night.
You said you had landowners in from Turkey Farm.
Yes, we do. Who wants to go first?
Welcome to town. Our meetings are not normally like this.
What do I do? Now, here we go. Carlos San Marco,
It's me.
5 Spruce.
Yeah.
And I need you to sign one of these. Did you get a copy of the original order of conditions?
I don't know, I don't remember.
It would have been part of the closing piece of it.
That with the other
Oh.
700 documents?
Yeah, I was saying, that's like rapid fire signatures.
So, yeah, so if, I have
Shin's disputing
yours. You had done a form saying
She
that,
shouldn't have
you
put a
probably don't remember
pool
doing it, it was another little form saying you received it.
No?
I
Maybe
guess,
one for me.
yeah, I just need one.
That's conservation.
I need
Yeah.
today.
Oh, that's true.
If you do it now, it's probably easier for
Why
everybody.
is Shin from
I just need
There might be something on it you can't fill out,
Here,
which is
here,
fine.
if you borrow it, so you can write.
Check it out.
So, 5
This
Spruce
is
is
your property.
809.
That's conservation.
This might be the
Wait,
easiest.
this, what, say that again? Or you-
This
what
is
is
this one. I don't know how much is, this is conservation. Because that's the wetland.
So
It's
which,
on her
who do we, which,
So 5 Spruce
okay.
is
This is
lot 25. And these are lots 3, 5, and 7.
Oh,
Yeah.
all the, okay,
So
okay.
everybody can just.
Block party, okay.
Come on.
So this isn't sure where
Oh, actually, Paul, I don't think I have one
this is
of
her
you.
property.
So fill out the best you can.
I'll steal that pen.
That's
Here.
good enough.
Thank you.
And so this is the one that she's,
Yeah, you
Disputing.
can't find. But she's more upset about this
So,
this, and
25 foot.
Do I need to write my wife's name as well?
this. Right,
No,
right,
yours is
right.
good enough.
And this too.
so basically in a nutshell,
She's there
that's your
encroaching
road,
on the
Spruce Street, and these are your lots.
into the-
And so there's, this is
She can't establish her property line.
wetlands.
right,
Um,
bunch of things.
And so
But she is
basically want to
very
avoid
clever with words
putting
and
like
stuff,
grass clippings, yard waste, like dumped out in the woods. What else do we not want to do?
Mowing, you want to kind of, I don't know if you guys are near
There's a
any.
big giant rock wall right here, so you
Yeah.
can't, there's
Yeah.
a cliff here,
Oh,
and a rock
yeah.
wall
Yeah,
here.
Okay, so you're,
Yeah, we're
Okay.
not even able to.
It's a good
that's
strategy.
fine.
We don't want kids necessarily playing out there. We're trying to keep it as natural as possible.
You know, the kids can.
Yeah, you can go catch frogs.
Oh, that
Snakes.
kind of thing, yeah.
Frogs and snakes and
I
stuff.
forget where the buffer's gonna show me or who.
Is it 30 foot?
So it'd be something like if you wanted to build a shed within the 100 foot of the wetlands, you would need to come get a.
Just make sure I understand like the lines here, so this is like the rock,
No, I'm trying to find the key for what
maybe you
symbols
know more,
are.
where we are like, what are the limits?
So,
So it's basically where we have like the black plastic.
the
like,
black,
I
pla-
think-
the black
I think
plastic
it's
is
erosion.
past our property lines.
It's past.
Yes.
Okay.
So the way I understand it, right, is you and I have a stake that's about 5 feet in front of that black hay bale,
Okay.
right?
So
Um,
that's the line.
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's this. It's weird. I don't know what the loop is that's going right through the middle of my house, but
Is that the,
Is that the 100?
Yeah, it's like the 100 foot
I think
buffer.
it's the 100.
'cause, like this is
So half of your house.
So
is
pretty much
100.
anything you want to do.
that drops off right. So can I put it like I'm in the process of trying to put up a fence, Is that allowed on my property?
Actually come in front
get-
of us.
I guess they would have to go out and do a site inspection, would be the
Or you could do an RDA.
appropriate
like,
thing to do first.
Yeah, because that's what we did at
You
the
do an
end.
RDA,
There's that white fence on this side of Spruce, is that 30?
request for determination.
There's a fence
30.
on,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
this-
it's, you
this
can,
side
you
of
can
that
do
one, yeah.
things
I
within
think a lot
100
of
feet,
this
it's,
one.
you,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just,
14.
that's what trips
This
the
was-
requirement for coming in to see us. And then the 50 foot is a no disturb zone.
Yeah, that upper lot you pointed out, that fence is actually outside the buffer zone.
Oh,
The one that's, is that lot 30?
Okay.
Yeah, the one that's on lot 30. We
No,
went back and
no.
forth with them a fair bit.
40.
But in there is no, it's
Oh,
outside the,
Outside,
Yeah,
okay.
outside.
But 30,
Yeah, 30.
remember we had a whole discussion about whether it's going to be solid
oh, that's
or not.
Katie.
yeah.
oh, yeah.
They did move it a little
They
bit.
have a
I
fence.
think that was before.
They haven't put their
No,
fence
they
up yet.
haven't put the fence.
But a lot of this was done prior to our regs, right? The first part of Durkey.
Yes,
Right,
So are there, like,
but
It's
anything
gonna
new
ch-
is.
anything new, yeah.
right.
So, well, you could do an amended or an insignificant change, which is how a lot of these have gone through. So it wouldn't have to be necessarily a
Yeah.
whole new filing. I think if it's a new shed, that might be something new.
Yeah, the fence, we can.
That fence in particular, that, probably just that one,
Yeah.
has come through as minor modification.
So explain the process
I
to me again, I'm sorry, just to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from North Carolina where there was homeowners associations which had, I couldn't change the color of my house
Oh,
without,
yeah,
without
no,
permission,
that's
My experience
right?
as well.
So,
Yep.
I'm just
No,
trying to
this
make
has
sure
to
I
do with
understand what it is we're talking about here.
Wetlands and resources.
Amy, how many of these have been signed off or closed out?
None.
So then,
So
So they're
there's-
still
and
open,
that's why
so
the
Oh,
they're
builder
still
told me I
open,
had-
so you could do,
That's why I've kind of been bugging Dave,
okay.
Guthrie, saying they should get this done, and then all of a sudden, everybody's contacting me. I was like,
Well,
oh,
that's because
Dave,
Dave-
finally.
Dave sent us all emails on
Yeah.
Friday that
Yeah.
said, you
Yeah.
need to get there, right, or I can't
Yeah.
close out your house.
But if it's still under, if it hasn't been closed,
So
and
we
it's
don't
still
want it-
under the previous one, then it's still not under our 50-foot, is what I'm trying to get at.
I
The
don't know
50
about
foot
that.
doesn't
If you
apply.
do it on, if you
If you
don't
do it under
require
the
a new
existing,
filing.
right,
Right.
If
So we
someone
could
wanted
do an
to add a
existing.
garage or something like that, you probably
that's
need
a little
new filing.
different, but a fence.
And it wasn't in the plans, it wasn't in the developer's plans, so
So they would,
it'd
how would
be
that
new.
work? Filing a new claim under one that's already still open, on the property with one still open?
That's what
Yes, you
happened
could.
with lot 30.
Okay. All right, so you can do that, but and it would be
It's
under our
totally
current
at your
regs.
discretion.
Yeah.
I
Right.
can do what?
So is this,
Oh, we're not gonna fill in that.
So it's any
Well-
work, any work within the 100 that disturbs or might impact the ground.
So like mowing my lawn?
No, well,
No, landscaping, lawn mowing,
Putting in
changing
a
shutters on your
paver
house.
patio
If,
in my
a
backyard,
patio,
right?
a
So,
shed, a fence
yeah, those are all,
would need discussion and maybe a permit, depending on where
if it's in, yeah, if it's in this area.
well,
Over
no, so
here,
my
you're safe.
my property, so you're talking in here.
Yeah, because that's a wetland,
but how about
there's
mowing
wetland
within
flags
50?
here, so there's a buffer zone
We can
from the
just-
Yeah,
wetland.
so realistically,
So
my
go over this
lawn,
way.
So they could-
this
maybe we
this
could-
loop
Yeah.
that you see here
Yeah.
is basically a cliff, so nothing will ever happen there,
Okay.
right? So
Oh,
I'm talking
that's
about putting a
why-
patio here and
Oh.
a fence like this, basically almost to where that dotted
I
line
guess
If
is.
it's
my-
already established lawn, under
Yeah.
the current plan, it can stay lawn, but you can't increase the size of your lawn.
If it's an open order of conditions and they have not been closed, you could modify the order of conditions to do that.
Yes.
But,
We're not gonna do that.
No, but I mean,
Do that,
well, he can't.
But we might
Why
modify
can't
it
you?
for a fence, so we can have a dog or something.
because
Pretty
we're
much.
done.
My entire
with them.
lot
We're not doing
if
it.
they haven't closed them out,
Yeah.
We're not doing
Except
it.
for what
We're
it was
done with
bu-
them.
past the erosion
So what they
barriers.
have is what they
So
have.
I mow up to the erosion barriers.
That means we have to go, no,
if it
that's
isn't
a whole
closed
can of
out,
worms.
it's not closed out.
Then we'll deny them.
But it would have to come in front of the commission to do that, so anything
It's not gonna
to
happen.
change the original order of
What's not?
conditions.
Gonna happen.
We're not gonna modify just because this order of
So I-
conditions has not been closed.
So I can't put up a fence?
No.
we-
That's like if you wanted to like extend like
The
the lawn, or you want
It's
to.
it's not, I have no desire to do anything.
No.
You're the one with the
All-
word.
I have a lawn. It takes me 2 hours to mow it now as it is. I'd like to keep, I want to reduce the amount of grass, right? So I mean, all I'm looking to do is put a fence up along here, plant potentially some trees along the fence line.
When you say along here, do you mean along the already existing?
Wherever
line?
there's a berm that drops down,
Okay.
you know, I'm talking to the landscaper about potentially building a slight wall there, so that it doesn't go like this, so that it goes like that, right? And then putting a fence up along that wall so that when I mow the lawn right now, it's like this.
So by berm, you mean like a drainage?
So we're
It's
talking
got
about,
it's got a steep slope on it.
it's a steep slope, I was talking about a rock wall, right? That he's putting all throughout the entire neighborhood.
Okay,
This
if you're
is
gonna
the approved
change the
plan.
slope of it, definitely you need to come in front of us and have
No,
a
it sounds like
plan.
you just wanna put a fence at the top of it, you said you're not gonna regrade anything.
I was potentially, yeah,
Oh, okay.
trying to make it flatter.
Yeah. Well, because I also told the people over at, Balsam, because they wanted to do some regrading, you said yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because that will
We should
modify
be
the
put in a
drainage on your
situation.
property, so that's something that definitely we are
Every lot
to
could potentially
consider,
come
because
back
drainage
before
of the
us.
wetlands is important.
Is it maybe different filing, like, originally it's been like Hancock,
Okay.
different part, the whole new.
I think it'd be the same filing, but I mean, if somebody wanted to do something, we could say, oh, it's a minor field change, but that would mean everybody would come back before us and want to change.
What did you do with the one I pulled out?
No, I know.
Slippery
It's
slope.
like
It's a very slippery slope.
really frustrating.
Got- looks like-
I know WF is wetland flag, and then
I mean,
Delta
that-
I
three.
don't think the
is up to
developers
30.
want to do
Yeah,
that
so
either.
30-foot
Knowing
buffer
everything
zone.
they've been
It's
through.
weird, 'cause we have a 50-foot no disturb.
They use an old 30-foot line for some reason.
Brian.
Because that would be on them.
This looks
I
like
think
it's
it's
the
part of
rock,
the
this
open
looks
space
like it's the
setback.
rock wall.
Yep. But, so you have a wetland flag right here, which means
Yeah.
50 feet from this point is technically a no disturb
Yeah, so
zone.
this is the approved
Under
plan.
the new way.
The big plan is a little bit outdated, because I think all of these got changed in the process.
I mean, a lot of it was modified as time went along, because they wanted to change the size of the house
Well, yeah, as you get
at times, reduce
people's
them,
preferences.
turn the house when they were building
The
them.
front, when we bought the house, the structure was already there, right? So it wasn't,
But they came back and they wanted to move the house.
not with me.
No,
That was
but-
done before me, yep, understood.
40. Okay, yeah, so 50.
I think that's a different situation.
right
It's
up
moving a
against the
house
house.
on an existing lot where they're gonna build a house anyway.
Yeah, but my
That's
point is-
different.
But my point, Kyle, is that it
Oh,
has
they
not
have
been
followed
closed out for a
the
certificate of
route
compliance.
coming.
It's still open, technically.
Colonial
need to
Drive
discuss.
added a fence as part of.
I'd push it.
conditions.
Technically, it is still open.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's still
still-
open,
Just
but it would
Guthrie
still need a
should have been
modification.
closing them out.
It would
If he-
need a modification.
I'm surprised some of it wasn't closed out when they applied for mortgages.
They're so backed up with everything.
Well, then go back to the developer and tell him what you wanna do.
They weren't ready for a certificate of compliance.
I got a better chance of asking
That's-
Superman
That's
to
what,
to swing
well,
by my house.
that's what he's saying, that's your option, so you can go back and tell him you wanna put a fence and you want him to pay for it. See if he'll
And
do
they don't
that.
see us in 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay, cause that would be on him, that would be on the developer to do that.
You guys can,
We can talk.
Yeah.
let me know about
Wait,
my
but
dog.
You
that's
guys are
been-
all set, or are you gonna do something too?
Yeah, no, I'm just curious about, like, we have the rock line here, and we're not supposed to do anything in this space, like, and like even mowing, like, have nothing there, but I just need to.
If it's
like-
already mowed or it's already.
Yeah, it's already
Then you-
mowed.
Then you
Can
can
keep it
keep
long.
I
mowing
can
it.
keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
There's
don't
no
dump
need-
your lawn waste
Yeah,
out
basically up to
here.
the black plastic fencing.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
do whatever, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
just not having grass or whatever, okay, good, yeah, just doing something wrong.
Well, and yeah, so a new turnaround for your driveway, as well as a shed or a patio of any sort would need to get approved.
So, and this is the place, so we just need to.
This is
submit-
one of the places. You
Yeah,
need a
so you-
building permit, if,
Sure,
anyway,
but we
you do
need
it,
to
but
come here.
Yeah.
talk to
Like
me.
call
Like
you.
a
Call
patio,
you.
for example, okay.
If you wanna put a shed.
Anything within the
90
buffer
feet away from
zone.
wetlands,
Oh, no, no,
I
no,
can
no,
say,
it's,
okay,
no, the
fine.
planning permit.
If you wanna put a shed.
Oh,
55 feet
oh,
away,
no,
you
you-
can do that.
I don't think so.
So,
What's the what?
Right.
It's our whole yard.
So the WF is
Building,
wetland
yeah.
flag
You said it's within 100 feet of the wetlands?
within a,
Which
so
is-
the
So
Massachusetts.
we cannot do anything.
Is
No,
our
no, no,
jurisdiction-
that's not true.
No, that's just
So the
our
Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act has jurisdiction over the wetlands and 100-foot buffer. And so if you're going to do certain activities within the 100-foot buffer, you have to at least contact Amy. And so as Amy said, if you wanted to stick a shed 90 feet away from the wetland, that's something that she has discretion over. If you wanted to put it 25 feet or, within
Within the
our
50.
within our 50-foot no disturb, then it would be an application and a discussion and, some fairly high bars to get a waiver within the, because it's for protection of the resource area.
Which is the wetland.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So yes, you can do things within 100 feet of the wetland. It's just the magnitude of what you're planning, the disturbance governs, how you go about it and
But you can
whether
mow.
you can,
You
yep.
can mow
So
within
it's
the
just-
100.
no, but
And
I'm
if that's
just wondering,
already
like,
established.
Keep it the way it
Patio
is.
as well, like a patio
Yeah.
is going to be like 50 or like it's,
If it's already lawn, you can keep it lawn.
okay,
It's not a problem. If you're
but I
gonna,
can build a patio there. Like have anything
With,
ask,
yeah, with,
but again.
Asking first, yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm
what's
just,
the
I'm
process
just.
for
asking.
and it might
How-
mean a formal permit application coming back here, just
right.
Yeah.
describing it. Abutters get notified, I mean, it's a whole process.
Okay. No, that's fine, I just want to understand
Yeah, yeah.
if it's going to be approvable or don't think about it, because.
A veranda?
Like a patio and how far I can go, because again, I can even change my plans, because I was also planning about like a patio, and if you're not going to be able to do anything there.
Yeah.
then-
If it's, generally if it's expanding, impervious surface, that means surfaces that water can't go through.
Yeah, so that's outside.
If you're expanding that within our 50-foot
In this
area,
area.
it's
Yeah, you're
very
at-
unlikely.
I'm
It
good.
looks like you're outside the 50. You would still need to,
Let's talk.
yeah,
Okay.
you still need to
That's
talk
fine,
to
yeah.
Amy, but yes, the likelihood is,
Is low.
like, within 50 feet is a no disturb zone, and so that's very.
I have a question. Is any chance we have like this lane is make wider?
Grimes
Yeah, the
Road?
yes, it's
They are gonna
Yeah, their
improve
plans, yep.
yeah.
We are worried about the water.
that. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
not, it's,
you don't come out this way.
Yeah, we come up
Cover
this
the-
way,
yeah.
yeah.
it's tough in there. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, that's a
Especially in
tough
the
spot.
winter, right? It's
That is
difficult to.
wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of narrow and bumpy and stuff, but yeah, I think there are definitely
I think in the
plans
short term,
for that
they were
road.
gonna, improve it in front of Durkey Farm. And there's a long-term idea of straightening the road out,
Yeah.
long-term.
Mhm.
We don't know even.
How long, yeah.
So, yeah.
That's fine.
So when like you mean front will be.
Shorten is how short?
Depends who has to pay for it.
Ask Dave
I know-
Humphrey, ask the
Oh,
builder. He's gonna have
okay.
better information than I will
Okay.
on what may or may not be happening.
And also like in the winter, who clean the snow in this road?
The town does.
Town.
Yep. Yeah, the town will plow.
That's why
Okay.
they're trying to get ready to pave the road. You notice they dug it all up today.
Oh, okay.
There's
It's,
no-
yeah.
There's no,
Dug it up.
yeah, there's no pavement from here to there to there. That's gone, that's gone. They dug the road up drastically today.
Well,
Are they putting
Do
utilities
they
in
exceed the
or something?
2-year binder?
I wouldn't think they're putting utilities in, considering all the utilities
it
are
might
there.
be part.
They're
of
getting
their
ready to
punch list
pave.
If it's been sitting
Yeah,
there
the
for so long.
binder.
So this
Yeah,
isn't
2
even
years
accurate,
of the
'cause
binder.
this lot's no longer here, and there's
Yeah.
a cul-de-sac going there.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to pave that cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
I don't see why they would have dug up this entire intersection for that.
That
Other than the
that
fact that it's.
intersection had settled, it was ponding water, so.
That's because they don't have the sewers open, they're all covered.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that could be. Okay, so we need to email you for any work we wanna do?
Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah,
And-
and I mean,
I've
it's topped
got a
this way.
swing set sitting in the garage I was gonna put up this weekend, I'm obviously not doing that now.
Oh, that's fine. You can.
I just heard you're gonna make somebody charge $500 to take it down.
Just don't go past the black fence.
Well, I'm never gonna go past the black fence, right, but it's, right, it sounds like. you have
That
to
was
pick-
a conservation restriction area, which is a little different.
On another project, so.
It's, yeah, that was the swing set. It was natural heritage, which is a different.
Endangered
whole-
species,
Yeah,
is a very.
there's a whole
Yeah,
different
I would definitely like contact Amy if you were gonna put the play set between the 100 and the 50. But there are some things that you
I was gonna
can
say,
do
that's back
without
from
even,
underneath the trees so the kids are in the shade.
yeah.
I think
Where it's
that
flat.
would- it
The only
looks-
spot in my yard that's flat.
But that's outside.
I don't know, it looks like it swings this way, so then it goes like that. Right, but
That's the 30, that's the
This is-
30.
this is my-
This one might be, again, easier to see that. That's what I thought.
The problem
The
is,
dotted line is the property line? Yeah, so I'm just gonna go.
So we can do it again under this.
Is the blue the 100?
developer put this in
Blue
this
is the 100.
situation.
Yeah, so my whole yard is, my whole yard is at 100.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if it's between the 100 and the 50, it's likely that
Yeah, you
minor
can do-
projects can be
right.
done. So just contact Amy about where you plan to put it, and she'll let you know what you need to do.
That's supposed to be a tree.
Yep.
There's no tree there.
Well, it's outside our jurisdiction.
Just saying.
Yep.
Maybe it wasn't, no, I guess it
No,
wasn't a
trees-
tree because
trees
it was
down here.
clear cut.
Trees
Oh.
down, so they planted
Okay.
trees, right? I didn't know if that was one of the ones that the builder, because like
Hmm.
every 70 feet they put trees.
Yeah, and they'll be going through a punch list with a plan for it and all that.
Yeah, if it's still open, and we haven't had a
Yeah, so
request for
you have a deck
certificate
in
of
the back of your
compliance.
house?
Yep. Off the deck, I was gonna put the concrete, the paper patio,
Yeah.
it's like a walkout basement.
Well, it looks like that's gonna be outside the 50-foot if you go right out the deck, but let's.
So you're walking out on the grass
Even
now?
if it's,
I walk out into 12 inches of
Mud?
gravel,
Mm.
because they cover the entire, so they don't put gutters on the houses, so the entire.
Oh, yeah, no, they don't.
Right,
Okay.
and then you walk into mud.
Yeah, that's no fun. Yeah,
okay.
come talk to us.
I guess we kind of go to the cross, you need to check with us if you're within
Yep.
certain limitations.
And I will tell Dave,
Who's
this is
stealing my
why I
pen?
done this earlier.
But thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all.
Sorry, I had to wait.
Nice segue.
Good luck.
Oh, can I have my pen?
You can have your pen.
Thank you. I was like, somebody has it. It's all good.
So
Thank
we're
you.
jumping to the 8 o'clock meeting, is that where we're going now?
Yes,
Holy moly.
7:45, ask for a continuance.
Thankfully.
Good evening.
Doucette and Glenn Berger for 73 Hartwell Avenue. And so, last time we left you, we had a septic design plan, and that was shown on this erosion control and drainage plan. When were we here, Amy? Was it June or April?
It's been a while.
Yeah. And it was basically, I think we had come to some pretty good understanding. And since then, we've gone through a couple revisions of the septic design plan with the Board of Health, and they've approved a plan. And what that plan includes is no variances from them, so we have to stick with all their local regulations, staying 10 feet off the property line with any type of fill. And the big one that they gave us was, which kind of set us back here, is the wall has to be 10 feet off of our septic system. So the type of system that we have now is still a septic tank and a pump here, and it pumps out to the field here, and then it goes into trenches, conventional trenches that are 2 feet wide by 2 feet deep. And they have a 4-foot offset from the groundwater, which brings, that we're bringing this area right here up about maybe 4 feet, 3 or 4 inches, and then over here, it's gonna be, the wall is gonna be less than 4 feet tall. The impact that that has, well, it's not an impact on the wetland, but the change that it makes is that this wall, if we were just put at 10 foot, it would come into the driveway. So instead, we put a wall here along the 50 with a guardrail, and then we're gonna drive up a couple of feet and then back down a couple of feet. These walls will be structurally designed to support the roadway. You know, as far as, I know it's a very different design, so I can take any questions on that, but really it's the same thing as far as, you know, everything's outside the 50, the driveway's in the same location, as far as X and Y, it's up higher now. But other than that, it's similar plan with a septic system outside your 50 and a driveway going in.
How tall is the wall?
Less than 4 feet. Probably right in there, okay, because, you know, everything changes, but, you know, we'll say 4 feet.
But it looks like you might have to go into the 50 in order to build the wall? Or-
No,
Because it's
no.
right on it?
It is, it's, and I can give a cross-section, but, you know, these lines are a foot thick anyway, and if you were to zoom in, you can find that everything is, we're about a foot off of the 50 to start the wall, so that gives us about another 12 inches to actually build the footing, which is only a couple feet down anyway.
Okay.
So is there any work right now within the 50
Nope.
feet? Oh, okay.
And where's your erosion control?
Erosion control is this funny double squiggle line
Okay,
all
yeah, I
around
was
here.
just looking for that.
Yeah,
It's not listed in the- like over here? Where's your erosion control over here?
right here. This is, you have to follow around this double squiggle, but we get into a couple
Oh,
of things
'cause
here,
it's-
because we have erosion control,
same.
and then rocks,
Yeah, it's-
and we have limit of work, all at the same place, so that's why it
That's
kinda
what I
gets
was thinking.
crowded, yeah.
Just having a hard time. So your erosion control, so you're just gonna basically build right up against your erosion control?
Erosion control go at the 50,
Let's see.
at the 50. And then, depending on, you know, these rocks have to go in, so that means probably taking the erosion control out and then placing rocks.
So the sequence, yeah.
Taking erosion control out and placing your rocks?
Well, the rocks are a visual barrier, and a physical barrier to stop people from driving onto the wetland,
Right,
into
yeah, I
the
remember
50.
that. Yep, that was
So, yeah,
something
I mean, you don't wanna
that's
play,
a while
you're
ago.
gonna have to take out the wattles to put them, they're going at the same place.
So if you have a 4-foot wall, you're gonna put rocks on top, like how, I guess a cross section.
Yeah, right, well, so,
If you
well,
wanna
it all.
even if you wanna sketch it.
So if we're off of the 50, the wall, the 50 kind of bends in like this, and we're about a foot off of it from right here. The rocks are gonna go there. Now, I left them in there. They may not need to go in there because you're not gonna drive down there because there's a guardrail anyway.
Wait,
So
so the
whether-
rocks are there now, they're the existing.
No, they're
That's
boulders
That's
that are
what we
gonna,
requested.
they're boulders that are gonna
last
be
time.
put in place to prevent people from driving into the 50-foot. Now, here, we're gonna have a wall,
So you're gonna have the
With
boulders
a
on
guard.
there.
so, with a guardrail. So do you need?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So the boulders are gonna be in
So
front of the
let's
wall?
say,
So
all right, so
the
looking at a cross-section, here's a driveway, okay? And if you're driving this way, you're gonna have the 50, you know, out here, you're gonna then have the wall here, okay? Now, in theory, the boulders go here, right? And then you're gonna have your wall here, and then you're gonna have a guardrail here.
So in
So,
other
this
words,
is
the
existing
rocks
grid.
potentially could be on the 49-foot line.
If you want them there,
Approximately.
if you want them there, do they need to still be there?
Well, if
because you have the
I
wall
don't think
and-
we need the rocks.
With a guardrail.
With you're gonna have, you know,
Yeah, a wall with a guardrail, I don't think you need the rocks, because it was just delineating where they can't.
Right, when it was at grade,
Cross.
right, it was
No.
at grade before, and that's why
Right.
we requested it
Right,
before.
so, I mean, is that in the order of conditions, the rocks be there,
It's
maybe
on
we
the
need
We
to
haven't-
modify it?
It's just on, plan. We haven't written.
We haven't, yeah.
Oh,
But
right,
I, as far as I know, every potential condition you have has been added to the plan, including the Japanese knotweed, where they're disturbing.
to be removed and not buried on site, yeah.
Yeah, the knotweed's gotten really
Did
bad.
the boulders go past the wall?
The boulders, this is the original plan where the boulders were, so it's pretty much where this driveway gets close to the 50.
Yeah.
And then, you know, instead of being driveway rock, it's driveway, guardrail, wall, rock, or boulder. So,
And at the other end, would there still be a line of boulders?
Yeah, there'd still be,
Where the wall ends?
yes, yeah, up to about here is where I don't know how we picked the spot, but that's what we have, that's what I'm showing on the plan.
I would say if there's no guardrail and no wall, then we need the rocks.
Okay.
But where there's a guardrail and wall, I don't think we need the rocks.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like
So basically, this plan cannot change as far as the configuration of the house or anything else.
Well,
It's cast in stone, is what I'm,
we can get smaller. When we bring in a building permit, it needs to be no bigger than this. The impervious area has to be no bigger than this.
What's the hash there? Is that?
This here,
porch?
this is deck. Here it's covered, this is open deck,
Okay,
So covered like with a roof deck?
yes.
And that's included in your impervious?
Yeah, so you have roof drains here, yeah, roof drains here.
okay.
so where's your reserve gonna go? Reserve-
The trenches between,
That's the exact question I asked Jim Garage.
so Title V does say as long as your trenches are 3 times the effective depth the separation between them, you can put a reserve trench in there. I didn't write Title V. I just exploited it for my benefit.
And how about, I know we've talked about snow storage, I think, on this property. Since you're so close to the 50, I assume you're gonna use the part before the 50 and after the 50 for snow storage.
Yeah. I mean, there's no problem with it plowing in here, there's space in here, there's space in here. There it gets a little tight, but it can be pushed back to here.
They wouldn't push it into the guardrail anyway, so.
No.
No.
What's that?
I said, do you want?
Yeah, right,
You get 2 feet of snow, it's gotta go someplace.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say I think some snow over it
Yeah.
is unavoidable.
Yep.
Do you know how far, like, into this area the knotweed has gone? It seems like it's.
I don't know what knotweed looks like.
It's
What?
awesome.
Is that the bamboo?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Oh, it's all
Everywhere.
everywhere. So this is where we originally cut a path,
Yep,
or cleared a path here, and it's all in here now.
yeah.
And it's everywhere. It doesn't, there's this tree line back here where it doesn't go beyond that, but it's just there.
I've heard in Europe, they're actually decreasing property values if it is not wheat.
There.
Oh, really?
It actually, the roots are so strong, it will penetrate concrete and
Got it.
pavement and other structures. It evolved in Japan to survive volcanic flows over it.
Oh, really?
And so it can, like, hot asphalt, like, it's so.
It loves it.
Well, it must
I-
spread. I don't know how, I mean, I understand.
Get to Hartwell Avenue.
I-
If it's
Highway,
disturbed.
well, highway departments, like, if they're cuttings of roots, it moves around, and, we're kind of.
But how did you hear from Japan, I think?
Oh,
But, oh, yeah.
I think on purpose, actually,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's pretty, seriously.
So
And it grows
actually,
quick.
Yes.
When you cut it, you really have
Yeah.
to dispose of it carefully,
Yeah,
too. I would-
like
I would-
incinerate.
And
Yeah.
you're taking out the first 6 inches of
Yeah,
soil.
Yeah.
yeah, because it's
Disposing of
rhizomes, all rhizomes underneath.
It'll-
It
Yeah, but,
layers-
yeah. No, and I appreciate that. I just don't think with this here,
Yeah.
like getting back over here is not gonna be unheard of.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
it won't be-
So I understand the wetland part of this, the protection part of it, is, the buffer is more important than this invasive being on the buffer. Like you don't go about trying to take it out of the buffer.
Well,
If
I mean,
possible,
Yeah.
we
If we
do.
want more
And
benefit,
it's a buffer.
yes.
It's not a wetland, it's a buffer.
And
And
it is-
the
it's
buffer is
getting
a,
into- It's in the wetland.
it's a monoculture, and so the monoculture of plants basically completely takes away the habitat function of the buffer zone. And my other concern is that, like, so as you've seen, you clear space, and then it just comes right in,
Yeah.
and so you start clearing back here and back here, keeping it out of the conservation easement, and, just thinking about things like that.
So not taking this and burying it there.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
Right, yeah,
Oh, geez.
yeah.
No, but also trying to get ahead of it
Yeah.
so that it doesn't.
No, so I was thinking
Impact.
as you commented there,
Yeah.
if you took, it appears that's all that's there. There isn't any.
That's what it does.
there isn't
That's the
any-
That's the
exact-
monoculture
That's the,
definition?
yeah, sorry,
yeah.
that's the
So
exact
you could-
problem.
You could control it if you said, you had something to, control it 10 feet from the buffer. So you knew, hey, this thing's coming back.
The only thing that will control knotweed, unfortunately, is herbicide.
Yep.
Almost the only thing, because it has to suck the poison
Oh,
underneath
right.
to the rhizome.
Mhm.
If you just
Mm,
cut it,
root.
it takes 10 years at least of cutting to stop it from growing.
The
Or
other
just
issue
completely
is,
dig it out.
you're trying to put a septic system in, you've gotta have the ground clean.
Oh, right.
Purely clean.
Yeah.
And you don't want it anywhere near it.
Well, they gotta go down to the C anyway, right? You have the A, B, and C, they call it top, sub, and your parent material, so they've gotta get down to that parent
But
material
you've gotta
anyway, so it's all come
dispose
out.
of that topsoil someplace to get rid of it, because you're gonna have the rhizomes still in it.
Yeah.
That's just being good
Yeah.
good
Well, I think it's,
stewards
yeah.
and developers.
I think it's
and-
on here, but I would suggest putting something in there, maybe a little more detailed, since you guys have the language to put it in, make a condition of it too, just so it's perfectly clear. the best way to do it would be make a picture of it, right? Because that's all contractors look at is pictures.
No, that's, I mean, that's fair, right?
Yeah.
I mean, although I feel like guys on the ground have a fairly good knowledge of some of this stuff, because
Yeah.
it's,
That isn't the same as Phragmites, is it?
no, Phragmites is the grass, the wetland.
Sorry,
grass.
knotweed makes it sound like one of those
Right.
vines that grows
Yeah.
and makes knots.
That's
Yeah.
not weed, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is like hollow, as you say, like
Oh.
a
bamboo?
reed or a
Yeah,
bamboo.
it comes down easy.
It's not actually a
It
bamboo.
does, but
It's not a
it
bamboo.
comes
It's not.
back up. So,
But, I mean, it flowers, bees love it.
yeah, they do.
That's one thing that's good about it. You can also cook with it.
That's
You can
true,
make it-
like rhbarb,
It's like rhubarb.
like the new shoots.
You can make-
Anyways.
Rhubarb, the only thing good about rhubarb pie is the sugar that you put in it,
Strawberries.
right? For strawberry, you know,
I like raw rhubarb.
I mean, the
but-
honey and the
the honey and the strawberries and all that, right? It
strawberries.
would be just as good without the rhubarb.
Sugar bomb. So remind me your stormwater, you have,
We have 2 infiltration systems. 2, yeah, so everything goes in there.
okay, and there were no, it was 1-to-1, there were no, like, you have enough capacity.
Oh, yeah, a little bit extra, yeah.
That's
For,
what
I think it was
that's what
for
I
25 years.
remembered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions
Second.
All those in favor?
with the conditions of the knotweed that we talked about.
That you want some.
What?
That you want some.
Anna wants a knotweed
Every
farm,
May, when
Yeah.
they're a foot tall, cut them.
including within the buffer, like control, including within the buffer.
So you're talking beyond construction?
Hmm?
No.
Okay.
I'm not-
No,
I'm
I-
not concerned.
Yeah,
Between the 50 and the 100.
yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like if it's across
There it
the
is.
the driveway, you've got to do something about it.
Yeah, it'll kill your
or
driveway.
It'll come back
Yep.
across.
So define no touch.
Well, no, they shouldn't touch it within the 50. Just
Yeah.
let it happen, but if it appears beyond it,
Yeah.
get it.
There is contention in the 50-foot for invasive species.
Yeah,
But do we want them to be responsible for that?
You want to get rid of it.
yeah, we need
Or
to
it's
get
gonna
rid of it.
spread.
But that's the thing,
It's
getting
really
rid of
bad.
Japanese knotweed
It's
is
gonna be-
out there.
It's not gonna be these guys, it's gonna be the owner, who's there for 10 years.
No, I don't think it
But it
needs
is
to be in
not-
perpetuity, but I think you get it while the construction is occurring.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
In the
Get it
construction area,
while the construction is occurring.
Yeah.
but only in the construction area. I mean, it's gonna be right up to the,
No, I
right of
know.
driveway.
I think you got to go be probably 10 feet beyond the driveway.
I don't know, maybe.
The best thing to do would be move the driveway over 10 feet, and then you know you're gonna get rid of it.
Okay.
That
That's slick. Remember that high bar we talked?
I almost slipped
Well-
down by it.
It will grow under a driveway.
It will.
and out.
No, it will.
That's
It
why
will
you've
destroy
got
your
to
driveway.
At least,
good. I like
But
that.
It
to
takes a
take care of that.
professional, no, it takes a
But that's the thing,
professional.
it takes a professional to do it, which should be done during construction, so that the homeowner has a fighting chance.
But just 10 feet will not do it, though. It's
Yeah,
just gonna
no,
come
I agree. I
right
think it
back.
should
I was
just
just
be
trying to
taken
I
find
care
say
of.
take as, I say take as much as
you
you
need to.
possibly can
But
take
that-
out of
It's
there.
gonna take a professional to even
Who
evaluate
cares if it's in the
what would
50?
be
Get
done.
it out
That's
of
fine.
there.
It goes all the way into the wetland. It goes into the resource area.
Get it.
Yeah, so that's a
If it's under 50, get it.
Tremendous.
Take
Yeah.
it. Doesn't matter.
That's fine,
Get it
get
out
it
of
during
there.
But how-
construction.
It's better to try and get it out than not.
It's not that much.
Before you vote, would you be interested in the condition that any new owners has to come in, which you've been
Yeah.
applying to subdivisions, but a house like this might be worth.
Yeah, especially with the, you see how much headache that damn CR has been causing. So yes, let's have a condition that they come talk to us about the natural heritage is really serious about this line and you really can't do
we
anything.
had that. It was already in place.
No, I know, but just
But I'm
given.
watching now.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, just given what people have experienced, let's just do it. Because we can talk about
If
invasives,
it's sold before
wetlands,
certificate of compliance
and,
is issued, the new owner needs to come in,
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
which is what
Yeah.
sure.
the standard.
Yeah, that's what we do, yeah.
So he
How about
can't, so we
before-
can't close out the order of conditions before he sells?
No, you can't.
Oh, before you issue the
Yeah,
certificate of
so-
compliance?
right.
Okay, we can request
Yeah.
certificate of compliance.
Actually, I think it should be done before a building permit is issued. After the.
You might not have the new owner.
You mean occupancy?
They come talk to us before a building permit is issued.
They might not have any on it,
Hmm.
depending on what's going on.
If it hasn't sold.
And plus it also may be a couple people.
Glenn might be building it.
Hmm?
If Glenn builds it, he's not
Right,
the
or
owner
he-
until.
No,
Or
but if
he could sell
Well,
it
or sell the
to Doug
plans.
Shaw, and Doug Shaw
I-
could sell to somebody else, so you got this whole chain.
I
of
gotta
people.
say, in the transition period, it's something where whoever owns it or whoever buys it, they come and see us
Well, they have to come see us before any construction starts.
somehow.
Or come see me.
Yeah, isn't it staked and you come out?
Yeah, you do the erosion controls
Yeah,
and
do all
meet with
that.
the contractor and all that stuff, so.
If they read it.
No, they have to do that for a permit.
And that's-
Put the
I-
permit in effect, right?
Don't think I've ever had a problem with the contractor not coming in. For at
Okay.
least that, 'cause that's so standard that I think people
Okay.
are kind of used to doing it.
Well, I'm just wanted more clarification on this knotweed business, that's all.
Yeah.
That they, really, it should be addressed somehow.
Well, maybe when, at the same time the owner comes in, they can talk about the not.
Yeah.
But you gotta catch the contractor, because construction is really the best, like, is really when you're gonna have heavy equipment that can get soils off-site and. I don't know.
If you're talking about removing earth in the 50-foot.
I wouldn't, I
No,
don't,
I would think it would be painting, it would have to be a pesticide applicator, herbicide applicator, painting each stem.
I'm comfortable with them doing it within the construction area, but I wouldn't want to put that burden of going out beyond that on the applicant. I don't know.
You kinda gotta if you wanna get rid of it, Andrew, that's the problem.
Well, and I think some
Yeah,
survey work was
rhizome.
done and has created a problem too,
As a,
like the path. And some test pitting.
Is it spread by, is the seed spread by birds?
Which I think is all within,
Do we-
what's gonna be disturbed in.
We didn't test it in
It's
the
rhizome,
50.
it's
Sorry.
raised by, it's rhizome.
Yeah,
Yes,
there
but
was,
it must have flower or seed.
It does too.
So
Yeah,
that
both.
would, the birds would spread it.
Yeah, probably.
no,
Although
there are
I-
key times a year to control it.
No, I'm just trying to figure out how to
Yeah,
force the issue that somebody at least takes a stab at treating it.
I agree.
I mean, that's the big thing. And even if you gotta get into the buffer zone, just, you gotta stop the stuff.
You're
Bottom line.
suggesting a plan, discussing a plan to go into the buffer zone to get rid of it?
I think you've gotta, you can't,
Well, I think there's a couple things to be considered. Right, is that what the whole commission wants to do? And then who's responsible for it? You know, how much can you put
Yep.
onto somebody, okay?
Yep.
So just, this may sound small, but we never know what it's gonna turn into, because of what Anna says, this stuff's tough to get rid of, okay?
It is
So how-
tough to get
So what
rid of.
happens if it doesn't get done, how do you enforce it?
Right.
And,
Yep.
you know, what kind of financial thing are you putting onto whoever owns the
I
builder or the
think,
owner, you
I
know?
think it should
So-
be put into the sale of the property, that this is what you're gonna be responsible for.
That's
That-
quite,
It's in-
And then you're looking at then you're looking at, well, how does this,
Yeah, but-
how does this affect a no touch?
I mean, he's right that, I mean, how, then they have to monitor it and we go back. And that's a lot of burden for someone with an invasive where we don't know. You know,
I
it's-
just see that being required
We don't
as
make
part of a
other
waiver,
property
owners
allowing
do
someone
that.
to get into the 50-foot, like you did with workers' credit union.
So now you go right where I was saying, if
Because
you're
there was
asking
a
this, we're looking, if
serious
you're asking for us to
basis
take care of it, we'd be looking for something else too.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, if we're gonna be going in there,
Right.
well, you might as well let us go in there with a driveway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think,
Well, I was-
plus with knotweed, even one treatment, if you do one treatment, it's not gonna get rid of it. That's just the way it is.
So there you go.
So you're not gonna, the liability for knotweed is gonna continue on to the next owner.
And
yeah.
how
You're
to
not gonna
spread to the neighbor's property.
I think just having the new owners come in, talking with them about controlling it is the best way. I wouldn't want to put that burden. It-
Maybe the only
Yeah,
burden
tying
should
it
be
to
in
the
construction
documents
area.
is,
It's no.
Well, here's the other thing,
Or maybe
No
just
the
one
owner
thing.
different than the
can
natural
vote,
heritage thing.
let's,
yeah.
depending on what's out there.
If you could mow 10 feet
yeah,
from the driveway into the buffer, then you can see you've got a problem if it starts coming, when it comes back, you've gotta mow this.
I would caution,
Whereas if
though,
it's-
mowing creates a lot of little pieces that
I'm
can
sorry,
then make you
remove.
not.
If it was-
Yeah, no, that's true.
If it was removed and lawn planted
In a
there.
specific way, yeah.
Yeah, then you could see, well,
Well,
wait a minute,
not
I'm
long.
losing, you know, something that's short next to the driveway. Whereas right now, it's tall next to the driveway, like you're saying, if it can wreck the driveway, you don't know you have a problem with the driveway until it's happening.
I mean, this is a long-term solution, so maybe it's better to just have the construction area be responsible for the construction, and then the owner, we could talk to the owner about the remainder, about what, a long-term plan, because it's gonna be years in the making.
Well, all I'm
If
trying
they
to
care.
say is have it, the same as the natural heritage restriction, have it some sort of a notification on the sale of the property or what have you, that there is an issue with this, that you're gonna be responsible for.
Well, it's in the order of conditions, so that follows the property, right?
Yeah,
But
but I
there's so many
mean,
people in town
until
that own
it's
their
done
property.
You eradicate it on this property, you have this small half-acre patch, and what do you do for the whole?
Yeah, we're not making other people clean up their yards.
Listen,
Right.
you close the hearing, I think it's up to you guys to sort out this thing. I don't know.
Did we get a second and a vote though? or-
I second.
Got a second, but no vote.
Yeah, okay, I made the motion.
And Andrew seconded.
Yep.
So what do we,
in favor?
Oh, wait a second, but
Well,
we're
what are
not
we
tying the
voting on?
knotweed condition into this, right?
I'm not tying the knot.
Okay.
So what's the motion?
well, no, there's knotweed
In
in,
the
there is
develop-
knotweed
in the-
management
in
in
the
the order of
construction area.
conditions and in the
Yes.
construction.
Within the construction area.
And-
Which is what they have on the plan.
And the owner coming in to talk to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
But-
Okay. What?
Well, your motion usually doesn't include conditions, you go back and write the orders afterwards, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah,
we
but
put the-
in-
If there's specials,
Okay.
Right, and in the name of transparency, like, you
Yeah, no,
have an
it's good. I wish everybody would do it
opportunity
because
to
I-
comment on,
Yeah, I sit here and people close, and then I'm like, they start
Wait,
right
where
at
did
the-
this come from?
Yeah, they start coming up with those conditions.
so
Yeah,
I'll have
okay.
this done tomorrow.
Huh?
I'll have this done
Will you?
tomorrow.
You usually cite the conditions that are beyond the ordinary,
that
or the conditions,
Awesome.
the standard conditions.
Okay.
I haven't
All right,
had,
vote.
Nope.
Do we need to vote?
yes, we need a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. 67 mil, just for an update, if you guys remember.
I thought you had something to do with that.
Yeah, I do. So we have ZBA on September 23rd. They only meet once a month, and we missed the filing by like a week, so now we're September 23rd.
Okay.
So we're asking for 10 feet, which is what you guys asked for, 10 feet
Let me
offset
see
from the
it.
front of the yard. So
Excellent.
we'll see what happens.
I'll let you guys know. Would
You guys know the
pick it up?
ZBA in town, right?
Would you want to pick it
What?
up?
You know the ZBA?
Oh, yeah.
yes, we know.
So hopefully.
Have a good
All right,
night.
thanks.
Thank you.
Well, here, I was thinking you guys would be bored without Kate.
I know, I thought tonight was,
Simple and easy. Okay, order of condition, notice of intent, 10 Fort Pond Road, construction for a driveway for a single-family home in Acton. That was,
Can I jump back to one thing before we get there, because I'll forget, when we get into this notice of intent, is the certificate of compliance for 42 Green Needles.
oh, yeah, I saw it.
These were the guys who basically redid the retaining wall down on Forge Pond, like Matawanaki, so part in Westford, part in Littleton, it's all done as per the specs. So they were asking for the certificate of compliance. I went out there last week and it looks great.
Excellent.
okay.
Okay.
Somebody want to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 42 Green Needles Road,
So moved.
Mass Department.
Oh.
204-776.
Jumping the gun.
I'll second, oh, no, you so moved, so, I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Motion
Okay,
made
thank
and
you. So,
carried.
Okay. So what do you want to say in the order of conditions for 10 Fort Pond? I think that's where you want to go
I think I read something that you put out, didn't you? You had some ideas.
now. It was strongly recommended to me that, wake up, thank you. That you guys write, if not be heavily involved in the denial framework of it. So what I sent around to you, I did the, sort of finding of fact. How many copies of it do you have?
Thanks.
All right, do we want a second?
There's all the documentation.
How in depth does this have to be, do you think? I mean, the vernal pool is kind of the key issue.
If they are gonna appeal it, I think you need to lay out, the reasons for the denial in as much depth as you feel warranted. You can throw at it.
Right, so they haven't appealed yet.
Well, you haven't issued your conditions yet.
Oh, you have to issue an order of conditions even if you deny something?
Yeah.
Why? Because aren't the conditions for the actual construction?
No, it's,
They're giving you a reason why you're denying it.
Oh, those are the conditions. Okay.
although it did occur to me, do they have to, record it in registry of deeds? That's like the final slap in the face.
I don't know.
I wouldn't, reason tells me I wouldn't think so.
I'll just confirm that with somebody, it is just so much.
I mean, this is a very learning moment because it's the first denial I've had in the commission, so.
I think we've denied something else. and can't
I think we
remember.
did, but I can't remember what it was. It's rare though, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I heard before I started the commission, I heard there was one you guys tried to deny, the one that got 25 foot or closer to the wetland, and then SDP overturned it,
Overhung the wetlands.
overhung the wetland.
That was a deck,
A deck, oh.
and it overhung the wetland. And that
denied-
was
we
that
denied
Kimball
one off.
property.
We denied one off Bulkley Road down that area, Crane Street, whatever it was. We denied that, and DEP sided with us.
But this other one I'm thinking of was the housing project behind the Toyota place. And that's where Peter Fletcher came in and,
Oh, that one, yeah.
yeah, he
The
finagled
wet,
it.
the wet meadow.
Yeah,
This is the order of conditions form, and on one page it's denied, and you have to say why it's denied. And I did check with Judy Schmidt. Oh, okay, if we can check both B and C, I start coming out with it.
I mean, I think the basis of, the guidance that, we were provided, the vernal pools that are not certified may also be protected by local conservation commissions or the DEP if credible scientific evidence is presented prior to the end of the appeals period.
well, it didn't sound.
But it was even before that.
Was it the environmentalist, the specialist? He didn't seem very enthused about it either.
No, that was Chuck Karen, he said, it was not part of his scope to do the vernal pool, but I can take a look at it while it's out there, because you can see what it's heading. So he said in his report that what they had delineated seemed reasonable and likely to not go into the driveway. And then I called him, I said, that was a vernal pool depression, not the vernal pool habitat. He said, oh yeah, they're in the habitat. And then I think the later proof is that
They're in the
pool
vernal
depression
pool, yeah.
itself as well as the habitat.
Right.
So that's kind of where that with the third party review went. And then, I think you all thought that they were out there doing their vernal pool timeframe.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, the applicant did no monitoring within the required time frame. They showed up on June 6th, which was after the window. Amy went out between March 29th and May 30th. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Actually, she went, started in February.
Almost every
11.
week.
Yeah, and the photographs, the documentation of the species that Amy provided in her summary report, in my mind, is clearly scientific evidence of vernal pool. So for me, that in conjunction with the applicant's failure to document conditions during vernal pool activity and then come after in the summer to, try to get the project approved. I think the burden of proof is now on them if they want to appeal. I think we have clear scientific evidence that it's at a minimum vernal pool habitat, if not a vernal pool itself.
Dave Crossman kind of came across as a client that he was working for, did not approach him in time to have it done.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
He made it clear.
yeah,
Right.
it wasn't Dave's fault.
No, it definitely wasn't. And Dave said he reminded the applicant a number of, more than once, that the window was closing, and so.
I think maybe that should be stated, that the client, along with whatever else we've got here, and just let it go, and if they're gonna appeal it, they're gonna appeal it, and let the EP figure it out.
So, there's two boxes you check off for the denial. The second one is information submitted is not sufficient. And I think that's kind of what all that goes to, so that's kind of low hanging. But I think what can happen with that is they can provide the information to DEP, and DEP will kick it back to you.
Yep.
And then we'll start over again.
Right.
The first box is the proposed work cannot be conditioned to meet performance standards set forth. Therefore, work on this project may not go forward unless and until a new notice of intent is submitted, which provides measures which are adequate to protect the interests of the act. A description, and this is in bold, a description of the performance standards which proposed work cannot meet is attached to this order. So that's, if you want to be able to check off both boxes,
Okay.
you need to come up with
Performance.
why the performance standards
I
are not.
definitely think we can check that
Yeah.
one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a
We
matter
have
of
provided
compiling.
our own survey by you, Amy, going out.
So, but that's more to the, they didn't give us enough information.
Well, but that's
It wasn't
also
whether or not-
corroborating.
Whether or not they met the performance. Well, I guess that's true.
So,
They were impacting something different than they thought they were impacting.
Right.
We're providing proof that they were crossing a vernal pool, not just the habitat.
Of course, this is also a place they mentioned for flooding, which is a whole different. What are the performance standards for? Performance standards is the flooding, all that stuff. And then an impairment of its capacity to provide wildlife habitat where said area is a vernal pool habitat. So maybe just say there was no proof, they didn't do the appendix B of the wildlife forms, they only did appendix A.
I thought Dave confirmed that it was a wildlife habitat or vernal pool. He pretty much confirmed it.
Yeah, he concurred
Yeah,
that it is
and what,
vernal
where
pool.
I was sort of thinking going is that because no one did any kind of, I certainly didn't, I walked through and left each time, I didn't do any transects, I didn't look in depth, we don't know for sure what species are out there, how much the population is. So I wasn't, I don't know if we can tell if the mitigation proposed is adequate or not without knowing
Right.
what the impact is. So I guess maybe that's the way to
Well, the mitigation proposed is actually going to destroy more
destroy
habitat.
more habitat, yeah.
But see, they'd be able to resolve that quickly too, just remove or propose a smaller mitigation. They were proposing that anyway in the last meeting.
Of reducing.
Reducing it.
You can bet we're gonna see this back again. At least let them,
It's okay.
It depends what it's worth to them.
Yeah, we may or may not.
depending how much money they wanna spend. And whether, how vital it would
Be a really long bridge.
I mean, at the very least, like, the resource area needs,
Isn't defined.
it's not defined, it is not adequately defined. Their plans were based on impacting area adjacent to a non-certified vernal pool, which would not be a jurisdictional area, versus what, based on the information we have and the scientific data Amy collected, they'd be going across a vernal pool, which is very much a jurisdictional area and, you know, worth protecting. I mean, it's a very, the performance standards of a project and what they're proposing to do, it would be different if they're going over a vernal pool versus, you know, land adjacent.
Because I guess the question is, if it does come back to you, what do you want to know? Because that sort of needs to be spelled out. Aside from the vernal pool delineation to begin with, how would you what would you use to make the determination that the driveway is not having an impact?
Oh, we need species, we need
Yeah.
species surveys, transects, you know, population.
But it's already, Dave Grossman already agreed it was a vernal pool.
Yeah, we need.
Right,
which means
but
it's a
to make a
vernal pool,
decision
Yeah.
about, like, if there's T&E, threatened endangered
Yeah.
species
Is it just frogs?
in
Is it
there,
salamanders? How
Right.
many?
like, what,
What kind of
Is
frogs?
it-
What kind of salamanders? And other stuff that's in there.
And we also need that survey in the right period of time to either
Yeah.
Yes.
delineate it. Correct delineation.
And maybe we're overthinking this, is to make it a simple response to it, is to a denial. And then if it comes back, this is what we would expect.
Right. Yeah, 'cause I just want to, I think that the denial needs to be crafted, that it's more than just you delineate the vernal pool wrong. Because then they could just come back and say, okay, well, here's the vernal pool. Oh, well, now we can deny it because we don't like your mitigation. So let's try to get as much in here, basically,
yeah.
as we can.
Well, we don't know what species are being impacted, and so there's,
And what their habitat
Mhm.
are.
right. You know, I mean, you can grab a piece of space that's not like up a hill, which is essentially what it looked like, and trying to reduce driving through the area, but, I mean, that area that they were proposing for mitigation looked really valuable from a habitat standpoint. I mean, that's,
But if it did go to land court, which it probably would, they would probably decide that you cannot restrict somebody from going access to their property.
but they already have
Okay.
access.
They already have.
They already have a house.
They already
and
have a
access.
house. This is the second
Yeah,
house. They're not denied
yeah,
access.
but it's,
Because there should probably be a separate finding under the bylaw where you have the wildlife piece added for isolated land subject to flooding.
And we wouldn't be denying them. They could put a bridge over the whole thing.
okay.
Yeah,
Right,
that's true.
but they'd have to know exactly what the edge is.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
What to go
But,
over.
you know, if they want to
Right.
access it, just build a bridge.
That's reasonable.
That is true, there's the high spot on the road, and then the high spot, I mean,
Right.
we,
Yeah,
that's where we walked.
massive bridge.
That would be a really large bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably need supports within
Right.
the resource area.
So basically, a few posts in the wetlands or in the habitat would be more acceptable than
I'd,
filling it and putting a culvert or something of that nature, maybe. That would be an alternative to it.
They could also just have the land be
I think they have.
mandated unbuildable. Not
What,
pay the
coming
tax.
in the other way? It's a larger area of disturbance
not everything's buildable,
coming in.
and they already have a house.
Mhm.
Or forego the project, period. tear down what they got and put up the McMansion.
Didn't even talk to me in Acton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is, well, it's kind of size point, they had a house on the property.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize apparently the constraints on all those lots, off Sarah Indian Way, they can now subdivide. I think there had been deed restriction or something on there, something that they couldn't
Mm.
subdivide, and I think that's why maybe you're starting to see more.
Oh,
on there. I wasn't, who was I talking to?
Interesting.
It might have been Chris. Somebody.
those are like bacon
The bacon
lots, right?
strips,
Bacon
yeah.
strips, yeah.
Okay, all right, well then, does anybody want to take a look at this before I issue it? And it's gotta go out this week. We got 21 days.
I've got time this week. The last 2 weeks have been like, I read this but hadn't
Well, tell
done
you what,
much
I'll
else, so
I'll try to
I
bang
can
this
look
out
at it.
tomorrow, I'll send it to
Okay.
you, if you have a chance to look at it, great. If
Yeah.
not, I will
Okay.
issue a look.
Okay.
And I was gonna mention that they haven't talked to the Army Corps,
Yeah. I was reading that.
or would have crossed, which is.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, can I go back to
Yes.
other updates? If possible. I noticed there's been a lot of activity at Very Fine over the last year or so, but it's been really significantly increased. And I mentioned to Amy about some stuff being either stored, or I didn't know whether they're gonna put tanks or something in the parking lot or something, and I think I just asked her to kind of check into it.
Wait, it's not very fine anymore.
Well,
It's
that's what I grew up with, is
injection
Very
molding
Fine.
or something, the stuff on the railroad side of.
Isn't it Patriot? Like
It's
Patriot.
I think
Very Fine, you know
Patriot-
what I'm talking about.
Oh, it's injection
I think
molding?
it's,
Yeah, it's like, that doesn't sound like Patriot Beverage to me, but
Are they making bottles? You could injection mold bottles for soda.
it's,
whole thing's
Injection
Patriot.
Molding Enterprises for the siding facility.
hmm.
And
They
just
take down that
recently, HNTB called me about, because they want to do this, the new siding, they
Yeah.
have the old delineation, I said, let's look at it, hasn't changed. And then Jim happened to call, so there's stuff going on out there. So they
Okay.
have the lagoons
over
out there. And I
There-
did look at the old files today, I know them very deeply, but the first one I looked at, as far as I went, because the order conditions and some subsequent letters clearly said, those are a resource area. It's land underwater and bank and some BVW.
What you gotta realize is where that treatment plant is, that was all lagoon.
Yes, it was.
At one point,
Yeah,
that was.
so even though it was considered a resource area, it was filled.
Yeah.
Because I believe their argument, I think in depth, was it had no functions, no functioning phase, which I don't think it did today. So
Yeah, I don't
I
think
sent
you
that
can make-
information down to HTB, I said, as far as I see, it's a resource area, if you wanna argue otherwise, you come look at the files and make your argument.
Yeah.
And then I went through
Yeah.
with the whole 50-foot no disturb. I believe those huge tanks that are out there, my understanding was those are going up on a roof or something.
I know
That
they
they're being kind of
added,
stockpiled there.
added another floor on top of
Yeah.
the priestess building on top of that, and I wouldn't be surprised, it makes sense.
But I told him, and this again is a stormwater with the rail siding, I said, you're gonna have to meet the stormwater.
Can they just use the existing rail siding? There's one that has
It doesn't
been
go
there.
far enough. They will be pulling out some parking lot to put in the siding. They're gonna be interrupting a manhole. I said, you guys need to know what's gonna happen to that manhole. So, they have a ways to go. So, we went through the whole thing, notice of intent, stormwater waiver, because they might be in a 50-foot.
Actually, I think the catch basins go into the pond too.
One of those catch basins, or near one of those catch basins, is actually the release valve for the lagoon. It's a big site on the Jersey barrier, so it's not clear if the Jersey barrier has just been moved around, or if it's actually protecting something, but, yeah, it overflows into Reedy Meadow.
Yep.
Discharges down there, so.
But it's good, in one sense, it's good that somebody is doing something with a building and then it's not going into disrepair.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's gonna be functional, and it should create jobs for the community.
I agree.
And the siding is supposed to get 12,800 trucks off the road a week or something
Oh,
like
really?
that. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a huge number. I read about it's a grant that,
The what?
the railroad siding.
What's that?
So a railroad, so off the railroad, a like spur siding to
Okay.
get materials to the companies along the railroad tracks
Okay.
So they load and unload to a railroad instead of to a truck.
instead of to trucks. And so it's supposed to
Don't use
take,
rail.
it's supposed to take a ton of truck traffic off of 110.
You
But it's
wait
through that
When
there.
it's-
intersection,
I hope the research will find out.
So wait,
about
the trains are gonna
Conway,
stop
because
Yeah.
Conway
there?
is
Well, there'll be
Conway.
an off-ramp, basically, so they'll pull off,
Oh,
get
okay.
loaded, and then pull back on the main line. So the commuter rails, you know, keep running free.
As long as the commuter rail is
Somebody
not
today's
strict.
closed.
Oh, okay.
I got personal.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, what's that?
Some company owns the
Okay.
tracks and stuff.
That's kind of interesting then.
No, they don't. No.
So I will keep talking to HNTB about what's going on over there.
Okay.
So here's some easy stuff. The Cloverdale Boardwalk construction starting, and so I'm gonna try to circulate that to see if anybody wants to help volunteer. The materials have been delivered, I think you probably saw that.
Yeah.
And Bay State, donated the erosion controls.
Oh, nice.
Some graffiti removal has been going on up at Oak Hill. The kiosk, this is last week, I don't think the kiosk is finished, but it's close to finish. And actually, I thought it was pretty telling about this kiosk. The trail that didn't used to be there is a really well-worn trail now,
Yeah.
in the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's a graffiti removal.
Yeah. It's a solvent.
It was like, I don't know,
Probably.
50 pounds of water they had to get up there.
Where was the graffiti?
Oh, yeah, rock.
It was up in the rocks.
Lookout Rock, like that area?
Yeah.
That's one up there.
Oh, is it rock miracle? Graffiti remover, Lynch Paint Center.
There's some amazing stuff out there. We had some of our state vehicles, or the trailers, got absolutely covered with graffiti. And the local DPW helped us out and came right off.
And he'll be submitting an invoice for them. And Dustin Neal is gonna go, someone has spray painted one of the trees over Proudy, I think.
Mhm.
So Dustin's gonna try to,
Yeah.
and that's a little trickier, because you can't, depending on you really don't want to be dumping chemicals all over the tree.
Yep.
You start sanding it off while you're taking off the bark, so.
Yeah.
This looks
One
like
of the recommended things is like just cover with mud,
Oh,
and it'll start fading and pulling off, and then cover with more mud.
what did they spray paint on the tree? Do we know? Or was it just
It
like
was an
a?
icon,
Just
it was,
some symbol.
it was some symbol, yeah. It's in the Littleton Trails thing, I think.
I didn't see
Yeah.
it. I'll have to.
It's kind
Yeah,
of.
the Littleton Trails Facebook group, there's a
Yeah.
picture.
This looks like Summit Rock, or as I know it as Summit Rock. Right, you folks know it as Outlook Rock,
Lookout Rock.
but that's what it looks like, where it is somehow. We also permitted tree cutting to provide a better view of Boston at one point.
Oh, I
Yeah,
was
that
wondering
very
about that.
controversial
There's-
one last tree.
Yeah.
What's that?
The MACC handbook, did anybody want it? It sounds like nobody's interested.
Oh, you said.
Yeah, if we
I
can
thought we were
use,
gonna,
if we
like, try
can use
to-
your ID, I think that's fine.
Have you tried it though?
No,
Oh.
I haven't tried it, but
Because I think we've tried it in the past, or
Oh,
I've
and it
tried it
didn't.
in Acton, and it like, wanted a new ID if you're coming on a new computer or something like that.
Oh, I'll try it.
So give it a shot and then.
I've been out of
let me know.
commission for.
But it sounds like
weeks.
three of
I'll
you
try it.
would want it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have to look at it. I mean,
everybody?
Yeah, although I found that I bought it and I never looked at it, unfortunately.
Well, I started looking at pieces when I was making some copies for Rachel and Julie. I was looking at pieces that I'd never really seen before up front. They have, like, special topics. I'm like, these are great. I never seen them before.
Is it revised stuff that they're?
Yeah, it's online,
Purpose?
so whenever they revise it, it's already cut online, so.
Oh,
They
those are
don't
walking. I was like,
sell
what?
hard copies of it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be, you
Jeez
look at
Louise.
some, look at with the regulations for revising.
Transfer
You
hose?
say
What?
feedback on-
Yeah, there's
Okay.
all sorts of stuff in there. It's more than anything.
Of course, they did the.
There is finally a walk out at Laurel Lake about the beaver control on September 5th at 10 o'clock. I don't know if anybody wants to go. I told them
I will.
eventually, can you make that?
what day
What's
is that on?
September.
It's
Oh,
maybe a Wednesday or something.
That is
Clock
Wednesday.
Saturday, though?
Yeah, and this is more informal, once they do the
It's a
filing.
Tuesday.
you know, it'll be a-
Are
What
they
if-
gonna eradicate
what do
them,
they
or
wanna
they
do with
just
the
gonna
beavers?
Put in some sort of a beaver deceiver?
I think it's just a beaver deceiver, I do not know.
Yeah, that's what they're planning, beaver
September,
deceiver.
Wednesday.
You know how well that works?
Well, they have it, a couple other places, and, yeah, it works pretty well, actually.
The cob one works pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta keep up with it.
What's a beaver deceiver?
It's a wire cage that's built out into the water with a pipe
Oh,
in it. And hypothetically, the beavers don't hear the water running, so they don't.
No, the beaver constantly try to cover up the wire, so you gotta keep at it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it's basically, you jam a culvert underneath the beaver dam, and further up you have, because theoretically it's farther
Oh, so you
away,
can drain in.
so it drains underneath.
I see.
Yeah, so they
Okay.
don't, yeah, they won't go after, they can't trace the sound of the water
Figure it
to
out.
where the hole actually is.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
But they do. So you just gotta keep that up.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
Better than killing him.
and there's a float, so it'll only go down a certain, to the,
Sure.
a set level that you
Yeah.
should.
Right, so you don't like drain.
And that's
Yeah.
actually my biggest concern about this, is it's lower the level of Long Lake, what's it
Yeah.
gonna do to the wetlands?
Yeah.
Is it the south end?
Yeah, the south end, yeah.
And that's a pretty cool wetland.
It's a really cool, I was
Although I
just
think
there
a lot of trees
yesterday.
there are dead because of what it was.
Yeah. I know, and the
Here.
natural level, level
Yeah.
of the lake was much lower. And there were rocks that actually were like sticking out of
Oh, really?
the water
Yeah.
Yeah.
that are submerged now.
Yeah, see, I
People,
don't know that
people
I've
on
ever
Long
seen-
Lake Association who remember the rocks sticking out, so.
Okay. I haven't seen it
Which
since I
they-
was here. I kayak to the lake every summer.
And there's some fine mighty sounds at that end too. Not a lot.
Yeah.
Water levels go down.
Right, mine likes water, likes water.
It has to be at the right level.
Yeah.
People have been saying some trees also are starting to fall in. that-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, huh?
That are inundated.
Yeah. 5 Scott Road, we never did do a site walk there. This was Peter Scott's.
Yeah, he's supposed to come in with plans. And
He
he
can't-
is, he's supposed to come in with a
Yeah.
plan.
He
Did you
came
wanna
in
wait for
and
me to
tried
go?
to pacify us with not,
Right, when I wasn't here,
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of that.
Yeah,
Wait, Peter Scott?
But he's
is
supposed
on
to-
Scott Road?
yeah. No, we took both, I mean, he asked, can I just do this or can I just do that? And we said, you really just need to come back with a plan because we don't
So
really know what you're
the ball
talking
is in
about.
his court. You
It,
wanna
yes,
see it ahead of time,
yeah,
right?
the ball is in his court.
The hard walk, that, actually the CR walk can wait until September, although our next meeting is September 10th. So we're gonna wait until after the 10th.
how
instead of-
deep did they do the holes for the posts? Oh, they put cement around them.
Yeah. When people start backing up, and they'll know. 50 Harwood, that hasn't come in yet. That'll come in next time.
So they're supposed to put a glass or a picture glass part on the front of this thing?
Yeah.
That's where it's at right now. It isn't gone any further.
Okay, yeah, that was like I said last week, so. The Board of Health is thinking about requiring 100-foot setbacks for the septic systems from wetlands.
Oh.
Okay,
I did that.
yeah. I,
Say that again?
100-foot setback.
Wait, who's saying that?
The Board of Health.
How about a repair or a new one?
well, that's different.
Yeah, and so I started going
I hope
through,
that's different.
through Aaron with that and
Yeah.
all the different stuff. So, you just might hear more about it. And they were also concerned about how wetlands are delineated. So I went through, well, anything that comes to us, you know,
Yeah.
you're either, you know, I'm gonna see it, they're gonna see it, there's, you know, the forms, all this sort of stuff. And so, well, there's times when people, engineers come in and say, yeah, that's a wetland line, and they haven't been to us.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah,
Mm.
but
okay.
But that's kind of
I think this was
changed.
targeted at one property, and, you know, the next week the guy was in. Anyway.
Okay.
But it's,
But the question for that one is gonna be, is that a wetland, a created wetland area at Long Lake? Is that a resource area or not?
Right.
Um,
There must be language, it's the same as detention basins, all that, there's specific language, either leaving it out or putting it in.
If it was created as a stormwater retention, then it is not a resource area. But if there was a resource area there when it was built,
Yeah.
then it might still be a resource area.
Yep.
So there's gonna be.
Well, I know there's a stream that runs to a junction and then, but I
That's
think
right,
it was
the stream
diverted.
flows through.
Well,
It
it was
doesn't-
diverted to that area. It originally flowed straight through pipes to the lake,
Yeah.
but
Through pipes.
it was diverted. So I don't know.
Yeah, all
If
right.
it,
So,
so it originally was flowing somewhere else if it was through pipes.
yeah, I think it was up in where the wetlands were.
Well, they did a lot of reconfiguring things in order to clean up the water going into the lake too, with the rain gardens and the settlement basins and.
The rain gardens were totally separate though, scattered amongst private property. The wetland park itself is divided with a couple of weirs. But I don't think they.
I gotta find the plans for that. I've never seen the plans. Or maybe Corey.
Corey was.
Steve Roy did it, the guy who just presented,
Who
the
did?
Steve Roy of Weston and Sampson did
Oh, really?
all that with Savas Danos.
Ha.
He's currently on, he just did the MVP stuff with Aaron. He and I used to work together. He just left Rambo for
We'll also
Weston
start
and
recording,
Sampson.
see if he knows where it is and everything.
Yeah,
I thought
Aaron
it was
knows.
Geosyntec.
Yeah.
He
Geosyntec
might have been
designed
with
it.
Geosyntec at that point.
Yeah.
He worked for DEP, I think, for a bit too. Like he's worked for a few different firms,
Yeah,
but he
when-
was involved in that.
Yeah, Geosyntec was the one who designed and
Yeah.
installed it.
He might have worked for them too. He's worked for a few different firms, but he's currently with Weston and Sampson, and he's definitely a like stormwater control and municipal planning are kind of those are his things.
Okay.
100 Special Pond, they're gonna do a burn there for the fire department. I just went out there, there's no wetland stuff, but they start burning Spectacle Pond. It's got to do a quick money.
Is that that's Project Canard's project?
I'm not sure who owns that house that that's been basically donated. It's gonna be demolished.
But that's
So it's
the
donated
housing
for-
project is in the field behind it.
I
Cricket
believe it's
Lane.
Kennard, but I'm not sure.
Oh, that is, yeah, that's correct, yes.
Okay, the Gutierrez project on Taylor Street. I thought I printed a map, but I didn't.
Actually, can we go back to the Cricket Lane Kennard project? I know it's not within, within a buffer, but I feel like Spec Pond is an impaired waterway under Section 303D of the Clean Water Act, and I know like the wells and the septics along Cricket are Board of Health jurisdiction, but when you develop like a large development that close to a lake that's already impaired, that is also part of our drinking water supply, I didn't know if you had any understanding, Amy, of I think because they're under the senior housing bylaw, they get to bypass some of the aquifer protection. So I didn't know if you that was anything that you had any thoughts about at all. It just
I didn't, because once it was outside the jurisdiction area.
Yeah, no, I know.
I kind of backed off it.
But just from a
and I don't know
holistic
what the water
standpoint?
department's been saying,
Yeah.
if anything, about it, since it's not.
I think they
right
put
on
out
line.
one, I think Corey answered a question like a long time ago when it was
Yeah.
first brought to, but I'm not sure that it was an in-depth look. I think it was like a what if scenario versus, hey, this
Yeah.
is now in front of us.
Yeah.
So I just,
I would like to know where the town aquifer is, whether it's under it or not.
it's not mapped under it technically that I can find, but it's ag. So a lot of the Mass GIS avoids mapping resource areas in an agricultural area. So you won't know.
Not necessarily. 'Cause
Oh.
No, I'm serious, because I've gone and checked on the pesticide stuff for applicating what I can
Yeah.
use. And there's aquifers under
Yeah.
cornfields that I have that you wouldn't
Okay,
suspect.
that you wouldn't suspect. Okay. I have found sometimes if something is mapped as ag, it blocks
It's cut
out,
out.
it cuts out some of the other resource areas. So of course, I guess
But
you're
that-
lucky.
but that's, yeah.
I guess you get lucky.
You trying to get out of here?
Sorry, Andrew. So, it's just something that I've, just given some thought to as far as,
I mean, the
You know.
planning board is still, I think it's
Yeah,
preliminary, they're
it
still
is.
certainly taking comments.
yep.
Well, Cricket Lane isn't on the discussion list,
No, it was other updates with,
Yeah.
what did it tie to?
There's another update.
Yeah,
Oh, with the spectacle, 100 spectacle.
Spectacle
Pond.
Pond, that's what it tied to, is that, yep. Okay.
Ed Ciola asked me for confirmation that the notice of intent, the order conditions for Taylor Street, Gutierrez, printed out me. It's right where Foster Street goes into Taylor's, it's that area behind there. They came in last October for an extension. And
I think we told them the last time that that was it.
Actually, yeah, that was in the order.
yes, well, I went back and looked at the minutes and Yoa basically said it's gonna be exceedingly difficult, and he said no. But he said, I think that was a no. And I said, well, I'll check no, but I think that was a no.
Was it
So
the big?
It's a, read it.
Yeah.
We voted to give them the extension
One
for
more year.
1 year.
For 1
and that
year,
was it.
yeah.
Either they do something or,
Yeah.
and we did that with Kimball too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a whole few.
Powers Road, Mary Shepherd, they're finally gonna finish that bridge.
Yeah.
And get out of the parking lot theoretically.
They're already started it.
Yeah, they're gonna, really, he said they're gonna do it, start up again this week.
They've already got the light, the red light set up down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
I hit that today. I was like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
It appears every now and again.
I think so, I'll get that done. And the meeting schedule, I think you have.
Oh.
And the only thing is just because we're a town meeting and holidays and all that stuff falls,
yeah.
October was kind of weird. So I did schedule 2 back-to-back just to get 2 in, with the caveat that if nothing's happening the week before, I assume we just cancel it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I kind of want to have in there in case it's backed up, but it's actually lightening up. You'd be surprised, but a little bit.
Yeah.
I bet we'll get an onslaught just before it freezes up.
How about the point? Why haven't you had updates on the point?
I have not been out there in a while, to tell you the truth. I actually did just send Stefan an email in the last week or two reminding him that they're supposed to be setting up a conservation restriction. And,
Isn't there one more thing that's supposed to go back?
yeah.
If they started it.
Yeah, I think they have
Yeah.
the climbing gym.
Yeah,
Is that-
up next to the theater.
Yeah,
The
that's,
climbing gym is gonna be there?
yeah, that's pretty well, like, framed
Yeah.
out.
There's lots of athletic things up there.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
ton.
Oh, what was the-
Fitness?
Oh, here's some things.
Soul Vita.
Oh,
You want
this
to
is looking
spend
good.
ridiculous amounts of money.
Judy Schmidt, the circuit rider, is after 9 o'clock, now is available by phone
Oh.
up until 9 o'clock at night if you want to call her during a meeting.
Oh.
She has a cell phone, although I'm not clear that we're
Wait,
allowed to do that.
Phone
Right.
an expert
So
during the
I'm
meeting.
Speakerphone? Speakerphone?
Yeah, no, and she says, here's the cell phone number, I'm available
Okay.
until 9 o'clock at night.
Would
So you
that-
call her on
would
speakerphone.
that fit us-
You
Yeah.
could. Yeah.
Would that
I
have
mean, I
been
could think
somebody
that
we
would be an
should,
issue.
would potentially have talked to about this denial?
Yes, I did, I asked her, can we check off those boxes, and she said yes. But it was after 9 o'clock my time.
And who is she again?
She's the circuit rider for
Oh.
Worcester.
Okay.
That's garbage, and there's an erosion control field day, Wednesday, September 12th, if anybody wants to spend a day at erosion control, I actually might go.
Where is it?
Aspet River National Wildlife Refuge, Visitor
Oh,
Center.
cool. Oh, that's a nice spot. I might go.
That's a very nice
See what I have
spot.
going on at work that
Mhm.
day.
Well, let me know, I can,
That's a nice
$45.
spot.
Accident's gonna pay for me, so
Oh. Oh, it costs money to go?
they cost money to go.
Oh.
It's only $45.
Is this water, for the community garden?
Yes, they used to building once a year, now they're building more than once a year.
Oh.
So, yeah, so there's one for Yap and one for Newtown, or,
How are we making out with the offset of paying or
no, before I
charging?
got the second bill, you're doing just fine.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
We're still covered.
Which water is?
Yeah, this
Water
is like,
The water bill for the gardens,
$20.
community gardens.
Oh.
and this is $23, so
Rats.
it's still.
I know. Maybe we should up it to $15 instead of $10 a plot.
I made it very clear that price might go up depending on water usage.
I think that's a good idea.
How
I
did
mean-
water usage go up this year?
I know, because I
That makes no
watered,
sense.
I
Is
think,
there a
twice
leak?
this year.
Yeah,
That
I,
really hot spell, like, I can see that, but after that, yeah.
I hardly watered at all.
I
Yeah, but the sign
think I watered
goes
once
down,
after I
restricted
planted
water.
and that's it.
Well, there's always the argument for
August
community
9th.
gardens that they're an agricultural use and they don't have to pay attention.
Where are the community gardens?
One
Yeah.
up by the water tank and one on Yap.
Oh, I didn't
Well,
realize
yeah,
it
this
was
is-
their community. Okay.
This is dated August 9th, so that means all the hot stuff was before this date. It was June and July
Yeah.
was the hottest
Yeah,
months.
June was, yeah.
So this is from the hottest
July was
period.
rainy.
I'm gonna call in now and take them just like combine the bills for.
I know July was rainy. I was just looking at precip data for stormwater monitoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I gotta renew.
Facility that
People
missed
gotta
it.
start signing up for next year.
I'd raise it by
Getting-
5. I
If I
mean,
got
Yeah.
3 days in a row to make hay, I was doing good.
And there are people, I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody wants to get out, but there are people looking for.
Usually it was
to get
2.
in.
You had at least one
Yeah.
day to dry out.
Yeah. Yeah, getting qualifying.
But yet the
permit
con is
facilities.
doing fantastic this year if we don't get a
It's
hurricane.
really good. Corn's super sweet right now. And I know you're talking about cow corn.
Yeah.
I won't come eat your corn.
is that a wrap, people?
Make a motion.
The new owners, so people come in and they don't know what's going on with the Conservation Commission, they're not like aware of the rules and regulations, when
No.
you just talk at them? Has there ever been thought of developing just like a one-pager that could be handed out?
I
That's
thought
a
about
great
that in the
idea.
car the other day, actually.
Oh, we had the brochure that we,
Or something, just
But I
like
guess
the
you'll
AIDS
leave that.
guide too, but I
Yeah.
mean, they all seem so confused, but they all wanna do the right thing, and I just was like, oh, you need information,
Yeah, or
Trouble is
holy
that
cow,
each
my
circumstance
fence,
is
or my, yeah.
True, but it didn't just seem like a couple of quick hitters, yeah, just rules of the road sort of expectations, just
It's a good
the
idea.
intent
Yeah,
of
no, I
what
agree.
we're doing, like, not that we're here to harass you, but you're creating impervious and that's affecting the water, which affects the water you drink, and just
Yeah.
to make it make sense to them as a new resident of the
Yeah.
community.
I
Yeah,
haven't looked
No,
at
it's
this in a
a,
while, but.
that's a good idea.
good point.
I literally thought about it on a road trip the other day in the car.
I gotta be there at 6:30 tomorrow.
I mean, is that the
The
kind of thing that
mail's
we would send out
early.
to every new homeowner
I
and
think that's.
within that? I mean, like
I
obviously
think
we've
it's
told them that's
somewhat
part of the
confusing
coming
with
in as a
turkey
new
is that there's so
development
many different
thing, but-
variables of turkey.
It depends on how much
And I
volume.
used to leave these
Today I
here,
started at 6:30.
but nobody was
got
taking
done
them.
at
I think maybe
4:20.
making this
Some days,
shorter
like,
and then more
Saturday,
plain
I
language.
take a
followed.
first
I
stab
went
at something
from
just to-
6:30 to.
Yeah.
6:30. So I had to finish
Yeah,
my
no, that would be
route,
great.
and got
In the
another-
midst
include
of this-
pictures. People like
Yeah,
pictures.
we're in the midst of
It's
this
all
with
the
free
packages people
information.
get.
It's just really
Oh yeah,
trying
it's
to,
everything. But
Yeah.
make
some
it
of
clear,
your
make it concise, and just.
there's so many like
Yeah,
political
because
ads
this
going
should
on.
also include the.
We've just got so many of it.
Yeah.
The bylaw.
Yeah.
So you have to sort
Well,
through every
sometimes you
single
forget
one.
too, you've been speaking a certain language for
So-
so long that,
Takes a
you know,
while.
explaining it to
That's
people
it.
who,
It takes
you
5
assume
hours
some
just to
sort
get
of
them all ready to
baseline
print.
and it's just not there, like, I think that's a good
Most people
point.
think like, oh, what's
Yeah.
my mill date?
Right,
But they don't realize that we have to sort every letter. Yeah, even pre-sorted mail, we have to go through letter
Have
by
we got
letter.
any other business that we need to discuss, or we bring there at the end of it?
what are these, okay,
No.
we don't have to schedule site walks, 50
50.
Harwood.
We went over that part.
They're coming in if you're gonna do it next time.
Okay.
Howard Brook. Yeah, I got all this. Okay.
Did I see what they're gonna tear down the building, or did they file for a permit to tear the building down on Taylor? I think that was something that came across that they were filing for a demolition.
I have not. 50 Porter just came in for a building permit.
It's the
I don't know
weirdest
what that
thing.
is.
I
haven't seen
subconsciously
anything.
like fill in these others every time. I don't even remember
You want
doing
our
it.
correct stuff? Yeah, I haven't seen that. That was pretty quick, actually. And I'm starting my next round of walking conservation restriction areas, so.
If there's no more further business, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That was quick.